Shadows of the MC Book 2. Summary. Navy is Jackson's brother and has hidden the fact that he is gay from everyone. Even Jackson. When he meets West, he is immediately attracted to the man, but for a long time, they only have a close friendship and Navy hides his feelings for West. After a few years, Navy can no longer hide it and confesses his feelings. But when an event turns everything upside down at the MC, Navy doesn't know if he will ever be able to look West straight in the eye again. Chapter 1. Coming Home. Navy POV. 2 years ago, I pay the taxi driver the amount on the meter and then look around. It's crazy to be back in Wrenchdale, and I can't say I've missed the city. The only thing I have mainly missed is my family and my friends. But the majority of those friends now have a wife and children, and I have not spoken to them in a while. For the past 8 years, I have mainly been on missions, with the Navy or on base, doing helicopter and airplane repairs. Many of the missions took place on large aircraft carriers on the open sea, where I and a number of other men kept track of everything that could fly. It's taken me a while to get used to life on a ship, and I've thrown up more in my life than I can remember. The sea can be rough, and even though the boats are stabilized, they cannot withstand a good sea storm. I have some nice videos of me and my brothers sliding back and forth in our cabin as the ship rocks back and forth, or a video of me throwing up in the toilet because I was seasick and suddenly the boat went sideways due to the waves, and I didn't hit the toilet with my stomach contents but the wall. No one wants these kinds of stories on film, but they are nice memories with my brothers that I will always keep, even though they were not always fun. My parents are not in the country at the moment because they are traveling around, so I asked my brother if I could stay with him for a while. He told me that he has a room at the motorcycle club he is a member of, and that I am always welcome in his apartment where he occasionally stays. I look at my watch and see that it is 6:30. Jackson said he would be here around this time because the motorcycle garage where he works closes at 5 o'clock. Not much later, I hear the rumbling sound of an engine, and I know he's coming. Jackson has always had a great love for Harleys, and it didn't surprise me that he bought one when he left the SEALs. My brother parks his motorcycle and gets off. He has always been a huge guy, even though I am not small myself at 6'2" feet, but I've always felt somewhat intimidated by Jackson's height, even though he's actually quite a big softy. Little brother, he laughs and he hugs with a lot of passion. There are few people who see this side of Jackson, and I always consider myself lucky that I am one of the only ones who sees this goofy side of him. Hey big guy, I miss you. I mumble and we walk into his house together, chatting. I haven't ordered any food yet because I wanted to wait until I knew what you wanted. So, just tell me, he says as he picks up his phone and answers a message. Dude, I've been craving kebab and fries for ages, I say, and he laughs at my dreamy look. Cravings are for pregnant women, he says with a grin, and I roll my eyes. I've been living on rice and pasta recipes for the past few months. You asshat, you like no other must understand my cravings, I say as I walk past him and punch him in the ribs with my fist. The big idiot doesn't move a feather and just chuckles as he makes an order for us. I have missed our brother's arguments and altercations, and I am looking forward to doing things with him in the near future. I have a question, man, Jackson begins as he sits down at the kitchen island with a beer, and I nod and sit next to him. I have been put in charge of the garage, but I am still looking for one mechanic, and then I actually thought of you, he says, and I immediately feel a certain youthful enthusiasm rising. Duda, that sounds great, but the last time we spoke you said you had enough staff, I say, and he nods in agreement. That's right, at first it was just West and I, but it's getting a lot busier now, so I could really use an extra hand, he says after a big sip of beer, and it's almost comical how his hand is almost makes the bottle of beer disappear. Asked, what a strange name, I mutter, and Jackson hums. Yes, there may be something else I need to tell you, he chuckles, and I raise my eyebrows. Why, is West your boyfriend? I joke, and he almost pushes me off my chair with a growl. No, idiot, I'm not into men, he growls, and I laugh uncomfortably. Even though I don't hear any disgust in his voice, it's always uncomfortable for me when someone says he's not into men. I have been struggling with my sexuality for years, but I have been aware for several years that I am more attracted to men than women. This is a difficult topic when you are employed, which is why I have never told anyone about it. It even went so far that I pretended that I had a girlfriend for a while. Jackson even thought for a while that I was in a relationship. He have been with a motorcycle club for a while now, the Red Devils. I have become good friends with the president of that club, Reed, who is called Hammer there. My name isn't Jackson there either. Only Reed knows that's my name. My name is still there, he mumbles, and I start to understand that my big brother is a member of the motorcycle gang. Shit, I didn't see that coming. The Red Devils are very well known here in the city, and the reports are anything but good. There are a lot of rumors about illegal activities, mainly drug trafficking, and I actually can't believe he is part of that club. How many illegal things have you done, Jackson? I mumble, slightly disappointed in my brother. I know, dude, they haven't been doing anything illegal for a long time. Reed and I have turned the whole club around, and everything is legal now. Don't worry about that, he says defensively, and I raise one eyebrow. Serious? So you don't deal drugs and so on? I mumble as I finish my beer, and he shakes his head. I know. Then I wouldn't have stayed. I have also recently become vice president, so I am pretty important, I guess, he says. And I am now secretly impressed by my big brother. We have West Patch party tomorrow night. He will become an official member and will no longer be a prospect. Come along. We'll eat something first, and then it'll be mainly drinks and women. He puts a hand on my shoulder when I nod with a smile. The doorbell rings, and he walks over to probably take the food. I really think I should tell him about my astrology, but there is always that fear that he won't accept it. Actually, I don't know why it's so scary, because Jackson has never given the idea that he is against gays. But still, I'll think about it out in the coming days. The next day, Jackson has to go to the garage for about 3 hours, even though it is Saturday. I decide to go with him to see where I might end up working. In the meantime, Jackson tells me more about life as a Red Devil, and it starts to appeal to me more and more. There are 4 different Harleys in the garage that are being worked on. My heart starts beating faster when I look at them, and I'm sure I'll be looking for my own soon. Take a look at the one in the back to see where the leak is coming from at the rear. I haven't had time to do that yet. If you want an overall, they are in the staff room through the door. I see his long arm pointing to the side from behind a motorcycle, and I see a door with staff only. I grab an overall and decide to take off my hard ass so I can make sure it doesn't get dirty. The door flies open, just as I am about to pull up my overalls and zip them closed. A guy my age with blonde hair stands still and runs his eyes over my torso. Oh, hi dude. You must be Navy. My name is West. Steele said you might come and work here. He is enthusiastic and holds out his hand. I shake his hand but look at him in surprise. Navy is all I caught, and he shrugs and points behind him. That's what Steele called you, he says nonchalantly as he walks further into the room, and also takes out some overall from the closet. He takes off his shirt, and I almost start to sweat when I see his physical state. The man has a soft stomach but a clearly muscular chest. It looks so soft, but strong at the same time. I shake my head and look in Steele's direction. Why did he call me Navy? That's strange, isn't it? I'm his brother, and I wanted to see if I liked it here, I say, not looking at him in the hope that I don't make him uncomfortable, and a little bit for my own physical reaction to the man. Welcome, man, he says as he walks past and claps me on the shoulder. He doesn't have a strong perfume scent, which I am very happy with. I need to stop drooling. Dude, why does Wes call me Navy? I whisper loudly to him as I sit next to him by the motorcycle where he is working. I had to quickly think of a road name for you, and this was the first thing that came to mind. Considering your profession, he mumbles as he continues to tinker stokily and doesn't look at me. You're Steele. I never hear you say so many words in one sentence. Wes jokes from his side of the garage, and Steele gives him a death glare. Shut up, asshole, Jackson growls, and I chuckle at the wink and naughty look I get from West. This could very well be the change in my life that I needed. Chapter to Party, Navy POV. 2 years ago, working in the garage was surprisingly fun. It is in many ways quite similar to my work in the Army, so it suits me well. In addition, West is a breath of fresh air with his jokes and presence. Jackson seems to be quite tired of him at the end of the afternoon. I'm not. At home, Jackson and I freshen up and eat a light meal. According to Jackson, there will also be food at the club, so we decided not to eat too much. Around 9 o'clock, we drive to the clubhouse by car. I have no idea what to expect and notice that I have some tension in my body. At the beginning of the long driveway, there is a gate with the men. As soon as they see that it is Jackson, they let him through with a nod of the head. There are already a number of cars parked, but my jaw drops at the number of motorcycles there. Holy mother, I start and I hear Jackson chuckling next to me. There are now a lot more than usual because it is an open night, but it is a beautiful sight indeed, it says, and we get out of the car together. Is a patch party always with so many people? I expected it to be. More intimate, I mumble, and Jackson nods in agreement. It's just what the man of the evening wants. And West likes a lot of people, he says with a roll of his eyes, and I chuckle. I have only seen the man once, but I indeed see him as more of an exuberant type than a calm one. Still, big giant, someone shouts, and our heads snap to the man in question. He is thin and covered in tattoos. "So, you have to call me Still," here Jackson whispers to me before he walks towards the man and shakes his hand. "Ink, this is my brother." Jackson points to me, and I give Ink a smile and hold out my hand. "Hi, Navy. Nice to meet you," I say, and he shakes my hand enthusiastically. "Are you sure you're related? You're smiling," he says with a wink at me, and I hear Jackson mumble something as he turns his back on us and walks inside. "Welcome, man. Steele already told us that you would probably come along sometime," Ink says as we walk in together behind Jackson. There are bright lights throughout the room, and it looks like they have moved tables and chairs aside so that there could be standing tables in the middle. On one side, people are playing pool and darts, some with a scantily clad woman hanging by their side as they play. The woman in question does her best to get the man's attention, but he is only concerned with his measurements and which ball to shoot. My eyes slide to the side and see a large bar where a number of men are drinking beers while talking animatedly. There is a tall woman with brown curly hair doing the dishes, and next to her, another scantily clad woman with a blonde bob is filling a glass with whiskey. THEVP is in the house. "Let's get started," someone shouts across the room, and his shout is answered by a lot of woos and other shouts. "I have to go to Hammer for the official part. Feel free to get a beer," Jackson mutters, after which he walks through the crowd, who automatically give way to him. Ink pats me on the back and walks behind Jackson. I look around and spot an empty bar stool. I walk over and take a seat. I give a nod to the person sitting next to me, but his head seems to be somewhere completely different. His eyes look glassy, and I suspect he already has some alcohol in his system. "You're new," the woman with brown hair and curls says with a sweet smile as she extends her hand to me. I grin and shake her hand. She looks beautiful and has the most infectious laugh. "Hey, Navy, nice to meet you. I'm Jackson's brother. I'm really going to have to get used to not being able to introduce myself with my real name. And I have to ask Jackson again how bad it is if someone knows my real name." "Morgan, Hammer's wife. Steele has already told us something about you. Nice to meet you. What would you like to drink, dear?" she asks with enthusiasm, and I almost get a warm, motherly feeling from her. "Beer, please," I answer with a smile, and within a few seconds, there is a nice cold beer in front of me. "Hey, I'm Yada," someone says with a voice that is way too high, and I have to make an effort not to let my face contort. How annoying it is when someone has a voice like that. Aye, Navy," I say politely as I shake hands with the other bar lady. Her breasts are almost falling out of her shirt. She is leaning so far forward towards me. "I've never seen you here. If you need help with anything, just let me know. I can help you with everything," she says with a wink, and I almost choke on my beer. It is very clear what she is offering. "There's someone there who wants to whiskey, Yada," Morgan says in an irritated voice, and Yada shifts towards the customer with a disappointed face. "She can be quite pushy," Morgan mutters to me, and I chuckle, grateful that she realized I wasn't interested in Yada's offer. "Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the evening," I hear someone shout, and I turn around and see Jackson, West, and another man standing on some kind of stage. I suspect that man is Hammer, the club's president. "This idiot wants to join our club," he starts, and my eyes go to West, who can hardly stand still with enthusiasm. Jackson is his broody self, standing stiffly next to West, clearly uncomfortable with all eyes on him. It's funny that my big brother has such a prominent role within the club, given his social discomfort and his inaccessible personality. Only the people who become very close to him know that he is a good guy, unless you get on the wrong side of his mood. "Do you think he deserves to become an official member, or should we let him be a prospect for a while longer?" Hammer says jokingly, and a lot of cheering comes from the men around me. West rolls his eyes, but the grin cannot be wiped off his face. West has already taken his oath with me, so there is little I can actually do to change it. "But, West, now officially in front of our brothers, welcome to the club," Hammer shouts, after which he stands in front of West and pulls the patch with prospect off his cut. Jackson comes over and puts a patch on it with enforcer. Then they both shake West's hand and walk off stage. "Party time," West shouts, and the music in the room comes on and the lights dim a bit. Some mood lights and disco lights come on. West jumps off the stage and is congratulated by everyone. I watch everything from a distance and decide to congratulate West in a moment. He doesn't know me very well, so I'll go to him last. Only I don't have to go to him anymore, because the man in question is slowly walking towards me. Navy, awesome that you're here, he says enthusiastically, and I chuckle. I think he already has some alcohol in his system. Congratulations, man, I say while shaking his hand. Wes doesn't like that and gives me a manly hug. He smells like a fresh aftershave and a bit like beer, a combination that I find strangely pleasant. Thank you. Come on, we'll have a shot of whiskey together to celebrate, he says with a pat on my shoulder, and we both take a seat at the bar. 2 shots of whiskey, please, Jada darling, he says flirtatiously, and with a wink, and Jada blushes and quickly gets going. A little later, she comes back and puts the shots in front of us. She leans all the way over the bar and looks straight at West. I want to congratulate you, darling, she whispers and puts a hand behind his neck and pushes their mouths together. I see West stiffen, but it doesn't pull away. Jada tries to push her tongue into his mouth, but he refuses to open his mouth. West gently pushes Jada away and chuckles awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck with his hand and a blush on his cheeks. Ah, thanks, Jada, he mumbles, and Jada giggles and continues serving people, but not before giving him a wink and an ear kiss. That was awkward, West mutters, and I grin at his perplexed face. Cheers, I say as I give him his shot glass, and we clink the glasses together and take our shot. Fouquet, one more, he says, and I shrugged. Why not? 1 hour and 9 shots later, and West and I are pretty drunk. Jackson has already checked on us and told me to take it easy. Morgan, another one, West shouts loudly, and Morgan rolls her eyes and shakes her head. Enough, you two. Navy here looks like she's about to pass out, she says, looking at me, and I can't do anything else but agree. It's been a long time since I've had so much to drink and my whole body is buzzing. I'm horny, Wes says with a sigh, and I manage to chuckle. Me replicita, I mumble and rest my head as I shamelessly look at West. The man in question is so drunk that he doesn't notice me watching him, which suits me well at the moment. I had already seen it when I first met him, but West is a beautiful person to look at, and his eyes are so bright that you can't stop looking at them. Shall we find a devil's girl and share her? They love it when that happens, he says with wiggling eyebrows, and I shrug my shoulders. I would prefer to have him along, but I have the feeling that he doesn't think that way about me and is completely straight. So maybe sharing a woman isn't such a bad idea, because then I still have some interaction with him. Even though it might not be physical, I can still look at him. The thought makes me very horny, but it doesn't feel good either. And I don't know if I've ever felt so insecure about how to handle this situation. Chapter 3, After Party, Navy POV. 2 years ago. Shit. What am I doing here? Why did I say yes to this? I already struggle so much with my sexuality, and then I say yes to West's proposal. Wow, I don't even know if I can do this. I am absolutely not attracted to the lady West has chosen for us. Her name is Abby, and she is about our age. She's way too eager and moaning way too loud while she's kissing West. West opens his eyes and sees that I am still standing at the door of the room we went to. He makes a come here motion with his finger, and I can't do anything but walk towards him, fixated on his eyes. Abby slams her mouth on mine, and I feel the envy running through my body, but still my mouth moves with hers and my hands come to her hips. Her hands slide over my chest and stomach, and she suddenly makes a very happy sound against my mouth. She looks at me in surprise and then pulls up my t-shirt, after which she runs her hands over my chest and stomach with an eager look. West makes a whistling sound, and he also expresses his admiration. The fact that Abby likes my physical appearance doesn't bother me, but when I see the admiration in West's eyes, I feel my body reacting. Fouquet. Someone did their best in the gym, Abby says, with admiration, and I shrug sheepishly. I had to be fit for work, I mumble with my eyes on the wall, hoping to sort out my spiraling thoughts. Someone's not quite ready yet, Abby mumbles as her hands slide over my crotch. She looks at me challengingly and sits down on her knees between us. Look, that's the perfect position, West says with a smile, clearly more sane than half an hour ago, even though he still clearly has a mist in his eyes. Suck him, he says commandingly, and Fouquet me, if that voice doesn't do anything to me. I take a deep breath and try to get my heart rate down. I don't notice that Abby opens my pants and pulls them down with my boxers. My eyes are closed and the world revolves around me. I want you to kiss, Abby says, and my eyes shoot open in panic and catch West's. West really doesn't seem to care and shrugs. Before I can protest, he puts a hand on my neck and smashes his lips against mine. They're warm and soft and everything I imagine him to be. He tastes like whiskey and West, and that's very good for my libido. Ooh yes, that gets him going. Look at that, I hear Abby say in the distance, and I suddenly come down to earth. I became painfully hard after this kiss, and it had nothing to do with Abby, who is on her knees looking at my crotch with admiration. Fouquet, Fouquet, I can't do this, I whisper in panic, and I hastily pull up my boxers and pants and close them with difficulty. You okay, man? West asks carefully, and I shake my head and run my hands through my hair. I'm not feeling well. Must be the alcohol, I mumble, as I try to calm myself down. Sorry, I mumble softly, and I walk out of the room as quickly as possible, and as if everything couldn't get worse. I bump into Jackson. Dude, where were you? He grunts in annoyance, and I look anywhere but at him. I was just busy, I mumble and suddenly feel a bit dizzy. I'd like to go home, but I can call a taxi if you don't want to leave yet, I say, but Jackson immediately shakes his head. I want to leave. You know that, he says, and I chuckle. How could I forget that my non-social brother didn't like being here at the party? How much have you had? You're wobbling on your legs, he growls disapprovingly, and I roll my eyes. Too much. That's why I want to go home, I mumble, and he nods. We both walk towards the exit of the clubhouse when my name is called from behind us. Hammer and Morgan walk over and stand in front of us. Hammer has a big grin on his face. Did you have a good time, Navy? He says with a wink, and I can't prevent the blush that comes to my cheeks. I roll my eyes and shake my head. Nothing happened, I mutter a bit stupidly, and it chuckles and shakes his head. We're going to have our hands full with West. I can tell you that he laughs, and I feel Jackson's questioning look on my side. How about joining the club, Navy? Hammer suddenly asks, and I look at him in surprise. Oh, yes, I had already thought about it today, I say, shrugging my shoulders. Nita, you know what? Come and have breakfast with us on Monday, so you can see what it's like when there's no party. After breakfast, we will all go for a ride of about 2 hours. Maybe you can join us if you have a motorcycle, he says, and I shake my head. I never had time to purchase one, but it's definitely on my list of purchases, I say, and he nods approvingly. In any case, come over for breakfast. Maybe we can arrange something for you. I think you will fit in well with us, just like your brother, he says, and he holds out his hand. I shake his hand and smile. Even if it's a bit forced, I really don't want to be here right now. I can't face West right now. You look a bit pale, darling. Are you okay? Morgan asks worriedly, after which he puts a hand on my shoulder. I look at her a bit sheepishly and shrug my shoulders. A little too many shots, I say with a forced grin, and she laughs out loud. Hammer also seems to like it all. Let's go, Jackson grumbles, next to me, and I nod. We walk together towards the car, and I sit down. What happened? Jackson asks as we drive off the property, and I sigh deeply, not knowing whether to make an excuse or tell the truth. I had a few too many shots with West, and he suggested sharing a devil's girl. I mumble, and I hear Jackson swearing next to me, but when I look to the side, I see a grin on his face. And how did that go for you? He asks with a laugh in his voice, and I punch him in the arm. Not my cup of tea. My mind wasn't there either, so I left, I say, irritated, and Jackson chuckles. He finds my suffering all too funny. So West is alone with that lady now, he asks, and I shrug my shoulders and look out the window. The idea that he might be involved with her now gives me a pang of jealousy, and that jealousy is completely misplaced, because it's very clear that West is straight, so I have to completely ignore my feelings for him. Hopefully we can still be just friends after this, but I guess we'll see on Monday how that goes. On Monday, after the ride, I want to start training you, so that you know exactly how the garage works, Jackson says, when we arrive at his house, and I nod silently. Hey, are you okay? He asks with a punch on my shoulder, and I look at him and nod with a smile. Yes, tired and drunk, I mumble, and he grins. Not much later, I'm showered and already in bed thinking about the evening. It's actually bizarre that a man my age has so much trouble coming out of the closet, but I just don't want people to think differently about me. I think I may look tough and big on the outside, but I'm a pretty sensitive guy, like my brother. I like people to think that I don't care about anything in the world, when it's actually the opposite. The room spins, and I squeeze my eyes shut to focus so I don't get nauseous. It was a really bad idea to do so many shots in a row, especially after not drinking alcohol at all for such a long time. Even though we are allowed to have a beer every now and then on base, that is something I never do. I am there to work, and alcohol is not part of that. I try to focus on sleeping, but all I see is West's face and the feeling I have when his lips touch mine. This is going to be a very restless night. Chapter for Monday, Navy POV. 2 years ago. So yeah, I'll never drink again. Famous words from someone who will probably do it again afterwards. My head is pounding and my vision is still blurry. Plus my mouth still feels like a desert. I sit up in my bed with a groan and rub my eyes. I feel like there is a smell of alcohol around me, so I walk to the bathroom to take a shower. After the shower I feel 10 times better. There is a smell of food in the house and my stomach starts to growl. When I arrive in the kitchen, Jackson is standing at the counter and he looks at me a bit surprised. "I thought you would sleep a little longer," he mumbles, after which he grabs a second plate and starts putting food on it as well. "Sleeping in is no longer in my system," I say with a shrug, and he nods understandingly. At the base, we always had a standard start-up time, and sleeping in was never really possible. So I am very used to the rhythm of going to bed on time and getting out early. I pour us both a cup of coffee, and Jackson puts the breakfast of toast, scrambled eggs and bacon on the table. "Thanks, man. Looks good," I say gratefully, and he nods while picking up a fork. "Simple, but tasty," he grumbles, and I chuckle. We eat our breakfast in silence. Jackson indicates that he is going to take a shower, so I decide to do the dishes. Not much later, I'm sitting behind my laptop looking at motorcycles. I don't really know what kind of model I want yet, but I'm already doing some research. Should we go to a sales point together next week so that you can see them up close? Possibly take a test drive? I'm startled by Jackson's voice that suddenly sounds from behind me, and I punch him in the stomach. It doesn't seem to bother the big idiot, and it just gives me a stupid grin. "Yes, good idea," I mumble, after which I investigate further. The day is slow but perfect if you have a hangover. We had a fairly late breakfast, so I skipped lunch. At the end of the afternoon, I go to the supermarket to get some stuff. Jackson's fridge was frighteningly empty, and I want to drink something more than beer or water. When I get home, there is a note from Jackson saying he went for a run. I put away the groceries and start making dinner. I opted for a simple stir-fry dish with noodles, chicken, sugar snap peas, bean sprouts, leek and sweet and sour sauce. Not homemade sauce. I'm not that handy. By the time I'm almost done, Jackson storms in, sweaty from head to toe, panting at the kitchen island and drinking a bottle of water. "I'll take a quick shower." 2 minutes, he says, and I chuckle. Military life doesn't get out of your system quickly. A quick shower will stay in our system forever. "We'll have breakfast tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Are you still coming?" Jackson asks with a mouthful of noodles, and I roll my eyes. How is this man ever going to find a woman? Yes, although I don't know how I can join the tour, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like at the club. I answer and he nods. Luckily, he's not talking with his mouth full again. Probably half of them are still grumpy from their hangover from yesterday. But Chef makes the best breakfast, so it will be fun, he says with shining eyes. He always talks about the club with so much passion that I can't wait to experience everything. In the evening, I go to bed fairly early. I have such an intense headache that I almost go cross-eyed. After a hot shower, I lie in bed, and I feel completely calm. A strange feeling, I can tell you. You always have to be on at the base. It happens regularly that we have a drill or an unexpected exercise. And even though I was mainly concerned with the technology, everyone had to participate. The morning comes far too quickly, and I have great difficulty getting out of bed. But Jackson's heavy steps walking through the house activate me as well. Jackson goes to the club on his motorcycle, and I follow him in his car. Not much later, we arrive and I see that it is a lot quieter than last Saturday. There are about 10 motorcycles and 3 cars, one of which is mine. Well, Jackson's. When I walk in, the smell of bacon and coffee hits me and my stomach immediately starts growling. "Dude," I hear someone shout, and suddenly there is a hand on my shoulder. Before I see who it is, I already feel and smell it. I turn around and look into Wes' electric eyes. "I had such a hangover yesterday. I'm getting way too old to drink that much," he says dramatically, after which he puts an arm around my shoulder and pulls me towards the tables. "Just wait until you're in your 30s. Jackson growls as he walks past us, and I chuckle at my brother. Sometimes he really is a growling giant. Fouquet, he's right, and that's coming faster than I would like. Wes groans and I laugh. I haven't had that much to drink in a long time, so I wasn't worth that much yesterday either, I say as I look around me. Next to the bar, a large table has been placed where Morgan and another man are serving food. I suspect that man is a chef, although I'm not sure. Breakfast is ready. Morgan shouts across the room and everyone cheers. Except Jackson, I guess. Come on, I'm starving, West mutters, and I chuckle. You're being quite dramatic today, I say, and I get hit in the chest. I raise an eyebrow and look at him in surprise. West shrugs with a naughty smile and walks towards the food. His pants are tight around his bottom, and I have a moment of difficulty keeping my eyes off them. No, thought somewhere else, Asher. I look up at the ceiling for a moment and sigh deeply. It seems that West is just looking for a buddy, so I really need to get my thoughts in order. As Jackson said, the food is phenomenal, and Morgan and Chef receive a round of applause from the entire group. Morgan blushes deeply and quickly disappears into the kitchen. Chef likes to take all the attention and bows deeply, then appoints 3 men who can help do the dishes, much to the dismay of the men in question. Navy, do you have a minute? Hammer says, and I nod and follow him through a narrow hallway. We walk into an office with a sign, President, and I take a seat opposite the desk. What do you think about joining the club? He asks, immediately ready for business. I'm becoming more and more enthusiastic, so I would like to join the club, if possible, I say, and he nods in agreement. When do you have to go back to base? I understood that you work in the Navy as a technician, he says, and I shrug my shoulders. To be honest, I think I'm going to quit the Navy. I'm looking forward to settling somewhere permanently and not being on the road all the time. I have not discussed this with Jackson in recent days, and I tell myself that I have to do so tonight. If I don't go back, it would be useful if I look for a place for myself. I can't always stay with my big brother. To be honest, I don't think I'll go back. I'm looking forward to settling down somewhere, so I don't think I'll go back. Only I've really just decided this, so no one knows yet, I say a bit awkwardly, and Hammer laughs. This is very similar to the conversation I had with Jackson when he came to the club. I will keep my mouth shut so you can tell it yourself, he says, laughing, and I laugh along. I can indeed remember Jackson saying he had decided quite abruptly that he was done with military life. Hammer and I go over all the requirements and rules of the club. I start as a prospect first, and once I have proven myself, I will become an official member. Like West this weekend, he gives me a contract for the work at the garage, and after I agree to everything, I sign it and I am officially employed. Not much later, we walk back into the common room, and I am announced as the new prospect. I am greeted enthusiastically, and everyone introduces themselves. Eventually, the breakfast man introduces himself as Chef. I heard that you wanted to join the tour. Is that correct? He asks. That's right, but I don't have a motor. Yes, so I guess I can come along next time, I say with a shrug, and he nods in agreement. Have you ridden a motorcycle before? He asks carefully, and I frown. Yes, why? I ask. You do this with some pain in my heart, but I can't join the ride, because I have to go to my sister for a few hours, so you can borrow my motorcycle. If you are very, 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 very careful. It takes a lot of effort for him to propose this, and I chuckle. I don't think this offer happens often here in the club. In general, a member's motorcycle is sacred, and no one else is allowed to ride it. Are you sure? I can wait, I say carefully, and he shakes his head. No, I know how much fun it is to ride with your brothers, so I grant you this, he says, and my heart almost warms from the gesture. Am I hearing this correctly? Are you lending your motorcycle to the new guy? West asks as he joins us and puts a hand on my shoulder. West doesn't make it very easy for me either, because every time he comes near me, he puts an arm over my shoulders or puts a hand on me. The man responds well to physical touch and loves to express his affection. That is clear by now. Yes, rather to Navy than to you, little man, Chef says with a grin, and West looks at him in surprise. I'm not that young, he mumbles, and I chuckle at his pained face. How old are you? I ask, and he shrugs his shoulders. 23, almost 24, he mumbles, and I nod. Coming back to your offer, if you are sure, I would be happy to accept it, I say enthusiastically, and Chef takes me along a little later to explain everything about his beauty. It is a beautiful model, and I can't wait to test it out. A little later, I'm sitting at the table, with Wes having a cup of coffee before we leave. I hope I didn't scare you off last Saturday, Wes says suddenly, and I choke on my coffee. What do you mean? I say a bit stupidly. Of course I know perfectly well what he is talking about. I thought I wanted to know what it's like to share a lady with someone, and when you said you were horny too, I thought, well, you know what I thought, he stammers, with a blush on his cheeks, and my heart beats rapidly in my chest. No, you didn't scare me off. I was just not quite fit after all those shots, I mutter awkwardly, avoiding his gaze. I understand. The mood was a bit dead after you left, he says, and I look at him in surprise. You didn't continue, I ask, and he shakes his head. I didn't feel like it anymore, he says with a shrug, and it's quiet between us for a moment. I try not to let my relief show in my looks. It affects me more than I want, the fact that they haven't had sex. I have to say, you're a good kisser, he whispers softly, and I choke on the coffee again. Wes bursts out laughing, and now I'm the one blushing. Chapter 5. 2 years later. POV, Navy. 2 years later. Fouquet man. This place is really getting too small for the amount of bikes we get here, West mutters as he bumps into a cupboard again. Don't complain. Just keep working, Jackson growls from the other side of the garage. I chuckle and shake my head. Those two will never be best friends. Jackson is far too stoic for West jokes and pranks. The day is long and I can't wait until we can clock out. Normally we don't work until this late on a Friday afternoon. But today it had to be no other way. When the time finally comes, we wash our hands and take off our overalls. Not much is said, but maybe that has to do with the fuss surrounding Chef, who sometimes just disappears. There seems to be something going on in his personal environment. He doesn't reveal much about it, but Hammer is a bit fed up with him not showing up without a message. Morgan is a huge sweetheart and likes to take on the task, but I can't say her cooking is great, even though you'll never hear me say that out loud. Would you like to eat burgers? West asks as he pulls his shirt over his head. I try to keep my eyes off his six-pack, but as usual they have a mind of their own. West came with me to the gym a few weeks after we met. The man always had a very athletic build, but he has now become a lot whiter, especially in his upper body. We have developed a close friendship over the past 2 years, and I have been able to suppress my feelings for him well. Right now I really value him as a friend, and the last thing I want to do is jeopardize the friendship. That doesn't change the fact that I no longer admire him when that opportunity presents itself. I'm just a human being with desires and feelings. Feelings that West has hurt often enough without realizing it, of course. Feelings that shouldn't be there at all for me, but I can't deny that every time he runs off with a devil's girl, not a piece of my heart breaks. That I just want to run after him and snatch that woman away from him, and then pick up where they left off. Navy, I hear in the distance, and I'm pulled out of my thoughts, and I see Jackson and Wes staring at me confused. What? I mumble as I feel my cheeks heat up, and I quickly turn around and walk to my jacket. You were very far away for a moment, man. Are you okay? West asks, and I nod my head. Yes, I was in thought for a moment. Sorry, I say, shrugging my shoulders as nonchalantly as possible. But are we going to eat burgers? West asks a bit impatiently, and I grin. Sure. Are you that hungry? I ask, knowing for sure that he is probably exaggerating, that he is almost starving to death. Hungry. I'm starving. It feels like my stomach is turning in misery. He growls, and Jackson and I look at each other in amusement. Wes can be quite a drama queen, especially when he is hungry or in pain somewhere. Come on, he says impatiently, and we walk out of the garage while Jackson locks everything. We say goodbye to my brother, who leaves for the clubhouse to have a meeting with Hammer and Ink, probably about the thing with Chef. West and I walk towards the diner around the corner. We have become regular customers now, as West regularly fancies a fatty bite. Sweeties, what can it be? Asks Linda, the dinner hostess, when she comes to our table. Chicken BBQ burger, cheesy fries, and a little ranch. Please, I say, and West looks at me with a dirty face as usual. You and your ranch, he mutters disapprovingly, and I laugh. You and your aversion to white sauces, I say with raised eyebrows, and he shrugs sheepishly. Linda laughs and shakes her head. For me, a double cheeseburger with curly fries and ketchup, like how normal people eat it, he says with a pointed look at me, and I shake my head laughing. Oh, and to sherry colas, I say, and Wes nods. Linda gives us a wink and heads off towards the kitchen. We chat amiably about the day until our food arrives. Did you know Diana is pregnant? Wes mumbles with a mouthful, and I feel my heart beating faster. Is it? Yours is the only thing that comes out of my mouth, and I feel the relief when I see him shake his head. She doesn't know whose, but I haven't been with her in about 3 months, and she's just 8 weeks along, so it can't be from me, he says nonchalantly, and I can only nod. Abby recently started talking about a threesome again with you, he says, and I choke on a piece of burger. I wash it down with some Coke and look at him irritated. You know I don't do that. We've talked about that before, I mumble, praying he leaves it alone. Over the past 2 years, West has regularly said that he would like to try taking a lady to bed together. The first few times, I waved it away and said maybe later, but lately I've made it clear to him that I'm not up for that. I don't know why he keeps pushing me, but of course he doesn't know that there is more to it for me than for him. I just know for sure that if I go the way with him, I will no longer be able to control my feelings. Lately I've been a lot calmer, and I noticed that I wasn't as obsessed with him anymore, because that's what it had become. Tuda, I never see you with a lady, or hear you talk about dating. You've got to let off some steam at some point, says West, the eternal pusher that he is. Not with her, I mumble, and not with you, I think. Are you gay or something? He says, laughing a little while waving it away himself. My eyes dart to him, and I feel a stab in my heart. Why does he have to say it that way? This is why I've never said it before. Because I'm afraid of how he's going to react, and he doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And what if I said yes? I say irritated and mentally kick myself for saying that out loud. That was absolutely not the intention. Wes stops eating and looks at me in surprise. He shakes his head slightly and seems to be thinking about something. Then he starts grinning and laughing. He puts some fries in his mouth and shakes his head. No, then you would have told me that he says, chuckling, and I sigh. That hurts, because of course he is right in a way. I'm saved by my phone ringing. I wipe my greasy hands and answer it. Come to the club now. Chef is missing, is all Jackson says before he hangs up. I grin at my brother and finish my Coke. We have to go to the club, I mumble, and Wes quickly eats the rest of his fries. I shake my head as he almost chokes. Some things never change. We pay quickly and run to our motorcycles that are still at the garage, and not much later, we are racing across the road. Perhaps a little too fast. An upcoming traffic light turns orange, but I decide to give a little more guess. Wes next to me hesitates, but follows after me anyway. I don't know exactly what happened, but before I know it, I hear a crash behind me, and I see Wes sliding across the asphalt. His helmet flies off, and I curse. I quickly park my motorcycle on the side and run towards West. He has some loose skin on his arm and a wound on his head that is bleeding a lot, but other than that I can't see anything crazy. West, I shout as I search him for any more wounds. Oh my, I'm so sorry. I couldn't see anything because of the sun, and I think I ran a red light. I hear someone say behind me with a shaking voice, and I look back and see an older lady who is completely shaking. Fouquet, this is not something I want every day, West mutters next to me, and it puts a hand on his head. When he removes it, he spots the blood and curses again. I called the ambulance. I hear someone next to me say, and I ask that man if he would like to reassure the older woman. It was indeed an annoying son, so I imagine she is telling the truth, and it looks like West will get away with a few scratches, so I'm not making a big deal out of it. My heart is in my throat, and the image of West sliding across the asphalt keeps flying before my eyes. Fouquet, you scared me, I say as I take off my hoodie and press it against his head wound. Head wounds always bleed a lot and often look worse than they are, but I suspect he needs stitches. Don't let them touch my bike. I'll be able to ride again later, West says as he tries to get up, and I gently push him back into a lying position. Dude, just wait until the paramedics have cleared you. But I don't think you're allowed to drive like this, I say with a laugh in my voice. It is quiet between us for a while as I keep pressure on his head. I'm sorry, I laughed. He suddenly says, and I look at him in surprise. When you said, and what if I was, he says, and my heart starts racing in my chest. How did he suddenly come to this? Bro, did you think that bothered me? I say a bit jokingly, even though it obviously bothered me a bit. Only I didn't expect him to still be thinking about his reaction. That's not really something West his style. I don't know, but you looked so serious, he mumbles as he closes his eyes, and I gently tap him on the cheek. Stay awake, dude, I say, and his eyes snap back to mine. My head is exploding, he says, and I look around worriedly. Where's that ambulance? Does anyone know how long it will take until the ambulance arrives? I shout, not actually asking anyone, but hoping that someone has the answer. They just said 5 more minutes, so now probably 2 or 3 minutes, says the man who told me he had called the ambulance. It feels like it takes hours, but eventually I hear the siren coming in the distance. I don't want to go to the hospital, Wes mutters in a tired voice, and I chuckle. This man is too stubborn for words. I don't think you have much say in that right now, I say as I lift my shirt to see if the bleeding has stopped. Fortunately, that is the case, but I still press it on again just to be sure. Soon after, the ambulance arrives and West is examined in the ambulance. They want to take him to the hospital just to be sure, but they say he was lucky. Would you like to come along, sir, A female paramedic asks, and I think for a moment, our motorcycles are still here, and I don't think he will appreciate it if I leave them here. I'll take care of his motorcycle. I don't think he will forgive me if I don't take care of it, I say, and I get a wink from the woman. She tells me where they are taking him, and I tell them that I will be right behind them. First, I have to put the bike somewhere and call the club. I suspect they're already wondering where we are.
Chapter 6. Ouch. POV. West. So, this day turned to shit. I just had an MRI scan and will get the results soon. According to the doctor, it will take half an hour, so I'm impatiently waiting for him to show his face again. I think it's all bullshit. I feel fine, so why do all this nonsense? My cell phone is also dead, so I can ask Navy about my bike right now. I swear to you, if it's broken, I'm going to make a scene. A nurse comes in and looks at my bandages on my arms. There were some abrasions but nothing serious. Can I help you with anything? She asks, and I shake my head and close my eyes. But before she walks out of the room, I suddenly think of something. Do you have a charger for my phone? Want with USB-C, I mumble, and she indicates that she will take a look for me. 5 minutes later, she comes back and tells me that I can use her charger for a while, but that she wants it back when she leaves in 2 hours. I thank her with a wink and my signature smirk, and I see a blush come to her cheeks. Luckily, I haven't lost my charm yet. When my phone is back on, I see that I have no message from Navy. Nothing, nada, no. How am I supposed to know how my motorcycle is doing? How am I supposed to know what's going on with Chef? I decide to send him a message, since he doesn't send me anything. Am I whining? Maybe. But I'm allowed to do that at the moment because I'm in the hospital. West, how's my baby? To check marks appear, and not much later I see that he is online and has read it. But what does the jerk do? He is not responding. I know I'm acting like a whining bitch, but I'm bored and I want to get out of here. West, answer me, dude. Again, there are 2 blue check marks but no response. I sigh and close the app. My head is exploding and I could use some pain medication. I press the button for the nurse and wait patiently for her to finally walk into my room. What can I help you with? She says as she looks at the monitor showing my vital signs. Can I have some pain medication? I ask and she nods. Yes. What's bothering you? She asks and I frown. She knows I fell on my head. What? Headache, I growl, and she tells me that she will consult with the doctor, but that it is probably allowed. I lay my head on the pillow and close my eyes. There was no need to worry so much about the fact that I hadn't heard from Navy yet. This headache is probably my own doing. My cell phone pings a few times, and I feel my heart skip a beat. Could that be Navy? And then suddenly I get irritated with myself, because I really wanted him to text back, like I missed him. I really hit my head too hard. Navy, I'm fine, thanks for asking. I laugh out loud at his answer, but I also notice that my heart is beating even faster. Navy, kidding, your baby is fine. She goes back to the club with the trailer. Navy, still wants me to come to the club. Navy, okay him. Navy, you'll see me in 15 minutes. West, thank you for taking care of my baby. West, see you soon. The door opens just as I finish talking to Navy, and the nurse looks at me with a grin. Who makes you smile like that? She says with a laugh, and for the first time I notice that I have a huge grin on my face. I clear my throat and scrunch up my face, shrug my shoulders sheepishly and look away. Here, take these 2 pills and you'll feel better soon, she says as she puts 2 pills in my hand and gives me a cup of water. I take the pills and thank her. She gives me a wink and tells me that the doctor will be there soon with some results. 10 minutes later, the doctor walks in. checks my heart rate and blood pressure, and nods approvingly. It looks good, Chris. There is no abnormality in your brain. And as far as I'm concerned, you can go home straight away. You just have to be woken up every 2 hours the next night to make sure everything is okay, he says, and my eyes widen. Every 2 hours, I exclaim in surprise, and I see that the doctor has to suppress a grin. That is my demand for your dismissal. If you don't think this will work at home, you should stay here one night, he says sternly, and I sigh deeply. What kind of torture is this? I value my sleep and hate it when someone wakes me up before my alarm goes off. It's okay, doctor. There are plenty of people who would like to wake this asshole up at night. I hear a deep voice say, and I can't suppress a grin. Navy walks into the room with a grin, and the doctor nods at him approvingly. Alright, do you agree with that too, Chris? He asks, and I suddenly realize that Navy now knows my real name, but I don't mind it as much as I thought. Agreed, doctor, I mutter grumblingly, and the doctor says that he is going to arrange my discharge papers. So, Chris, Navy says with raised eyebrows, and I shrug sheepishly. Navy comes to stand next to my bed and extends his hand. I look at him confused but shake his hand. Archer, nice to meet you, he says, and I chuckle as I shake his hand. Pleasure, I say, and Asher chuckles as he sits down in the chair next to my bed. How are you? He asks, and I shrug my shoulder and let my head fall back on the pillow. Well, okay, I guess. As you heard, I can go home soon. My head is mainly bothering me, but the abrasions aren't too bad so far, I say, and he nods attentively. What did Steele want? I ask, and Asher rolls his eyes. Archer, it's weird to call him that in my head, and we both have to remember that we're not doing this at the club. As you know, we had to go back because of Shaft's disappearance, and Priz and Steele thought you were all right here, so I had to come to the club, he mumbles with a roll of his eyes. Let's just hope you don't get into too much trouble, I chuckle, and he shrugs nonchalantly. I'll work an extra shift in the garage, he says, and I'm sure Steele will quickly forgive him given the workload at the moment. Thanks for coming here, I mumble, and he gives me a smile but doesn't say anything. There's a strange look in his eyes, and I wonder what he's thinking about. It really takes way too long for the doctor to finally make the papers, but I am finally released from the hospital. I'm currently riding on the back of Asher's motorcycle as we ride to the club. I just put my hands on my thighs, much to the dismay of Asher, who wanted me to grab him, so there was less chance of me falling. I don't know what it is, but since our conversation this afternoon, I feel so different around him. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I feel like he meant it when he said, and what if I said yes? Because the more I thought about it lately, the more I realized that he shows absolutely no interest in the Devil's Girls, or any other lady for that matter. And the look in his eyes when I left, I can see his face every time in my head, and even though he is good at hiding his emotions, I know him quite well after the past 2 years. I intend to have a conversation with him sometime in the coming days, because if he is, then he is still just as good my friend as before. So if he is afraid to come out, there is no need for that. Another voice in the back of my mind whispers to me that it is very selfish that I think this way, because I am also searching in my sexuality, but I quickly push that voice back and ignore it, because I don't want to go in that direction right now. But I can ignore how good it felt to kiss him 2 years ago. I'm pulled out of my thoughts when the bike comes to a stop and I see that we've already arrived at the club. I feel like the ride has flown by, and that is not due to the speed at which Asher drives on the road, but purely because of my wandering thoughts. We walk in and I'm surprised at how quiet it is. I expected more people to be there after Hammer called a meeting. Bust, Navy, office, Ink shouts across the room, and we walk like two good dogs towards Hammer's office. Are you okay, West? Morgan asks from behind the bar, and I give her a thumbs up and a wink. She laughs and shakes her head, after which she continues with what she was doing. We walk into Hammer's office, and I see Steele and Ink leaning against the wall with steely faces. Sit down, guys. Our pres growls from behind his desk, and I see a gloomy look in his eyes. First of all, how are you doing, West? He asks with a raised eyebrow. Great, pres. A concussion and some scratches, so it's not too bad, I say, and he nods approvingly. Good, he mumbles, after which he is silent for a moment. I look sideways at Asher, but he is completely focused on Hammer. Chef is currently missing. We have no idea where he is. There are some problems in his family, but he never said much about it. I hope you understand that we now have to look around carefully to see if we see him. We are also trying to see if we can track him via his mobile, because he is not answering his mobile. Morgan is going to see if she can find someone temporarily to help her in the kitchen. But until then, we should enjoy Morgan's cooking, he says, and Asher and I nod like good puppies. Is there anything else we can do? Asher asks next to me, and Hammer shakes his head. No, Chef has been a member for years and would never just disappear. So I am concerned, but he has struggled with his family before, but never wanted to involve the police. So we keep this within the club. We're going to come up with a plan of action, but right now there's not much we can do, except look and wait for signs of life, he says, after which he stands up. Oh, and men, no complaining about my wife's food, he says with a raised finger, and everyone chuckles.
Chapter 7 Moment interrupted. POV, Navy. The music thunders through the room, and the lights blind me every time they shine on me. It smells like sweaty bodies and bouncy, and I can't wait to get out of here. West is standing next to me, but he seems to be enjoying it a bit more. The grin on his face is big as he looks around the club. The average age is about 20 years, so the chance that we will meet Chef here is small, unless he is with his sister, but I think she's more our age. Apparently Chef can be found here regularly for a game of pool or to play darts, but at the moment it seems like a school party is going on. I take a few long sips of my beer and look around. I catch some eyes of willing ladies who blink a little too much. I give them a polite nod but show no interest, because I don't have it. Maybe we better get going, Wes says in my ear over the music, and I roll my eyes and nod my head. This is a school party, or some shit, I mumble, and I see Wes grinning. There are a lot of willing ladies. I can tell you, he says with a shoulder bump, and I can't suppress a smirk. They can't take their eyes off you, man. You're rocking that whole military look, to Wes says, as he runs his eyes over me, and I frown. Military look? I ask in surprise, and Wes laughs. Iceman, short hair, tight t-shirt that shows off your muscles even more, and you're wearing a navy cap, he says with a grin, and I laugh as I take the cap off my head and inspect it. To be honest, I didn't pay attention to which cap I picked up. This was the first and best one I saw. I put it on my head and shrug sheepishly. I look over and see West is still staring at me. What? I ask as I inspect myself for anything strange. Nothing, West mutters as he quickly averts his eyes and takes a few long sips of his whiskey. West has been acting a bit strange since he got out of the hospital 2 weeks ago, but every time I ask what's wrong, he waves it off. I put a hand on his shoulder and turn him a little more so that he has to look at me. Duh, you've been acting strange lately, I mumble, and he does everything he can to avoid eye contact. This wasn't the place where I wanted to confront him about his strange behavior, but I think the alcohol gives me a bigger pair of balls. Wes sighs and closes his eyes for a moment. I give his shoulder an encouraging squeeze, and I am surprised by his hand taking mine on his shoulder. Are you? He starts, but he seems to change his mind and shakes his head. Am I what? I ask with an unpleasant feeling in my stomach. because somehow my intuition tells me that this is about our conversation at the diner that we never talked about again. Were you serious? In the diner? He asks as he suddenly looks straight at me and his eyes seem to pull my soul out of me. They're so intense. About what? I ask with a frown, and I feel like an idiot for pretending not to understand him. But I want to hear him say it, and it gives me more time to muster up the courage to answer what I owe him. Fouquet, I didn't want to do this here. I hear him mumble as he drinks his glass of whiskey in one go and puts it down on the bar next to us. Yes blurts out of my mouth before I think about it properly, and I mentally kick myself. I look to the side, and it feels like there is a stone in my stomach. I finish my bottle of beer and put it down next to me. This is the first time I've admitted my astral orientation out loud, and I've never felt so vulnerable. It's not that I mind that I'm attracted to men, but I'm somehow afraid of how my friends will react when they hear it. And West is one of them, and maybe even more so, because I have as strong feelings for this man from the beginning, which he will probably never be able to reciprocate. Yes, I hear him ask, and I nod while still looking at my beer bottle. Who would have thought that beer bottles could be so interesting? Ash, West says my name so softly, but despite the music, I hear it very well. Wouldn't you ever tell me this? I thought we were friends. He asks, and his question sends a stab into my heart. Because, of course, he's right. He's one of my really good friends, and that's exactly the reason I never told him. I don't want to lose our friendship. Fouquet, how do I go about this? Do I just tell him he's the reason I never told? Or do I lie and say that I had doubts about my orientation for a long time? Or should I come up with another excuse? Everything I think of sounds wrong, and my heart keeps beating faster. It's been a long time since I've had a panic attack, but right now I feel one coming on. I didn't want to ruin our friendship. I mutter a bit stupidly as I try to hide my shaking hands by shoving them in my pockets. In all this time, I haven't looked him in the eye, and I feel like anything but the big man I normally am. I would never. West starts talking, but I know exactly what he's going to say, and that's because he still doesn't know everything. I have to stop this hellish conversation, but I also want to make it clear to him what the point is, and I give him that point. I put a hand behind his neck and pull him towards me. Our mouths meet and I feel him stiffen. I give him a long kiss on his mouth, but don't take another step because I don't feel any reaction from him. I slowly remove my hand from his neck and take a step back. I look at West, and he looks at me with a look that I can't make out. It's not disgust, but it doesn't look happy either. That's why I couldn't say anything. I say as I glance back at my shoes and wait for his rejection or angry tirade. I hate that I feel so insecure, but I've also never felt so exposed in front of someone. Fouquet, West says, and I am surprised by two hands on either side of my head and West's mouth on mine. This time, it's not the polite kiss I gave him before. No, West kisses me a few times before his tongue finds mine, and at that moment, my body starts to work and my hands come out of my pockets. I grab his hips and pull him against me. West moans and deepens the kiss. This is everything I expected from a kiss with West. Uninhibited, sensual, hot and exciting. Everything West is. Well, I think this is a bit too much for the young souls in this club. Don't you think? I hear someone say over the music, and I come out of my astral haze. West lets go of me and takes a step back. He looks at me intensely, but then turns his gaze to the man who interrupted us. It's a man our age, brown short curly hair and a bit shorter than West and me, but that goes quickly. So, can I join you? He asks brazenly as he undresses us with his eyes. His eyes rest on my crotch a little longer than I would like, but that's probably because of the erection visible in my pants. No, I growl, as I feel an unknown jealousy and possessive feeling arise. The unknown man notices that nothing can happen to me, and has the balls to turn towards West and extend his hand. Jimmy, nice to meet you, he says with a smirk, and I growl softly when I see West shake Jimmy's hand and smile. West, he says, and I am a little taken aback by the big grin he has on his face. And I don't know why, but I think it's because he apparently didn't mind us being interrupted. Jimmy looks at me, and he looks at me challengingly. I cross my arms over my chest and look straight at him. Jimmy raises his hands as if innocent and steps back. Okay, sorry, I realize I'm not wanted, he says laughing, and he reaches into his pocket and takes out a note. His gaze goes to West, and it puts the note in West's front pocket. He leaves his hand there a little too long, but West doesn't seem to care. For when you're bored, he says with a wink at West before turning and walking away. West watches him go and shakes his head laughing. Then he looks at me and his smile disappears. You were very short to him, he says, and I shrug my shoulders. I don't know what he wants me to say. I'm not going to apologize. An awkward silence comes between us and I hate it. I hate that I was right and that my revelation to Wes created this situation. Ash, I hear somewhere in the background and I look into Wes's eyes. Eyes that look confused. Eyes that are calculating. Eyes that look like they're sorry. I'm going home. I need to think, he says, averting his eyes and staring into the distance. Okay, I rasp, and he nods and looks at me again. I'll see you soon, he says, placing a hand on my shoulder and squeezing gently. The action gives me some peace, but my head remains a storm that refuses to calm down. A double whiskey, please, I mutter to the bartender, and he immediately gets to work. My interaction with Wes has put my whole body on high tension, and I need some alcohol to numb myself. What made him decide to take the step of kissing me? And why did he suddenly want to go home so quickly? I know he felt something to when we kissed because I felt his excitement when I pulled him against me. Maybe this was the step we both needed. Or maybe this was the step that drove us apart. Time will tell.
Chapter 8 Jomgri, POV, West. I storm out of the club and look around wildly. The feeling of running away is overwhelming, but I can still see Asher's face. When I said I was leaving, a certain insecurity, lust and disappointment were visible in his eyes, and I am to blame for that. My attraction to him has really overwhelmed me, but it's now more than clear. I like Asher, and maybe even more than like, but I can't think about that at the moment. I don't know how long I stand outside looking into the distance, but it's definitely more than 10 minutes later. When I decide to apologize to Asher for running away, I rush back in and spot Asher in the same spot at the bar. He is talking to the bartender, and I don't like the grin the bartender gives him, but I like the next action he takes even less, because the bartender leans over the bar and pulls Asher's head towards him. I don't know how long they kiss, but for me it's too long. And I'm not going to sit here stupidly waiting for them to finish. Anger and jealousy flow through me, and I feel like I'm being played. But on the other hand, I ran away after our kiss, so maybe this is his way of getting back at me or forgetting about me. I can't remember how I got home, but I fall on my bed without undressing, and before I know it, I'm in dreamland. The next day, I wake up with a pounding headache and everything from the night before flies before my eyes. I walk to the refrigerator, but see that I only have drinks, and that it is time to do some shopping. I decide to go to the nearest bakery, where they also happen to serve the best coffee. I order a large black coffee and a turkey sandwich. Then I take a seat at the back of the shop, where I can sit quietly at a table. The image of Asher and the bartender keeps coming up, and I find myself getting angry again. Why did he have to move on to another man so quickly? An employee places my food in front of me, and I devoured the sandwich in no time. Apparently I was hungry. Well, fancy seeing you again, someone says, and I glance up and see the man from yesterday's club. I just forgot his name. I think the man sees me thinking, because a grin appears on his face and he laughs softly. Jimmy, from yesterday at the club, he says with twinkling eyes, and I nod. Oh yes, Jimmy, hi, I mumble, and he apparently sees my answer as an invitation to join me at the table. I frown at him and wonder how someone can be so forward. He doesn't seem to sense when he is not welcome. So, where's your boyfriend? He asks as he leans back in the chair and looks at me challengingly. It's that his personality is a bit strange, but he is certainly a handsome man. Not as muscular and big as Asher, but he has good height, and my guess is that he has quite an athletic build. He's not my boyfriend, I mumble, as I take a few sips of my coffee and avoid his gaze. Okay, I have to say, that was a very hot man to look at. All those muscles, he says almost dreamily, and I feel an intense jealousy coming on, because he has looked so closely at Asher. I just don't know how to respond, so I shrugged my shoulders a bit sheepishly and continued to focus on my coffee. So you're single. I feel a hand on my shoulder, and my head flies to the side and I look at his hand on my shoulder, and then at him. He has a flirty look on his face and he looks at me expectantly. I realize I've been staring for a while and haven't answered yet. But, yeah, I think so, I mumble, and I see Jimmy nod. So, I have a chance, he says with a big grin, and my eyebrows shoot up. This man has balls. You're very direct, I say, and Jimmy starts laughing and shrugs his shoulders. I just know what I want, he says softly, sliding his hand from my shoulder and resting it on my thigh. A slight panic arises in me. I have never flirted with a man before, or a man has never flirted with me. This is uncharted territory and I'm not sure what to do. 1. Does it work the same as for women? 2. Asher's revelation from yesterday is still in the back of my mind, despite how the evening turned out. 3. I don't know anything about Jimmy. What if he's a psychopath? I need to go to the toilet. I mumble and I get up and rush to the toilet. It's only one toilet, so luckily I have some time to collect myself. That doesn't work out well because the door opens and Jimmy walks in. He turns the lock and takes a few steps forward so that he is close to me. I have the feeling this is new territory for you. Is that right? He asks softly as he places a hand on my chest and pushes me against the wall. I nod silently and swallow loudly as his hand slides down and rests on my belt. There's nothing better than discovering new things, he whispers in my ear, and I feel his tongue slide over my neck. And you got my attention yesterday, and I couldn't stop thinking about you last night, he whispers, and his mouth comes to mine. I stand stiffly still, but I decide to kiss him back. My blood flows south and I feel that he is suffering from that too. Suddenly he drops to his knees and I see that he had already unfastened my pants without me realizing it. With a speed that I can't follow with my foggy head at the moment, he pulls my erection out of my pants and goes to work. I rest my head against the wall and enjoy his warm mouth that works expertly. He doesn't have to work for very long, because in no time I release in his mouth, and he intensifies my release by playing with my balls. Huge kki mo and lovely, and I hear him chuckle as he takes his mouth away from me. My foggy head clears, and suddenly I realize what just happened. I'm not much better than Asher at the moment, and that really bothers me. Sorry, this was a mistake, I mumble and step around him, unlock the door and storm out of the cafe.
POV, Navy. I push the bartender away and shake my head. The moment West left, he was flirting with me, but I didn't pay attention at first. But as soon as I gave him some attention, he almost pulled me over the bar and kissed me. What is it with men today who impose themselves without asking? Or men who don't realize that they are not wanted? I throw some cash on the bar and storm out. What a terrible evening this has become. Once home I see that Jackson isn't there, but he's probably sleeping at the club tonight. My shower takes way too long, but I don't care. Standing in the shower is the perfect place to clear your thoughts. After my revelation, Chris took the initiative to kiss me again, and that gives me a little hope. I suspect that, like me before, he is very confused and doesn't really know what to do with himself. I decide to give him a few days, and if he doesn't contact me in the time, I will confront him myself. It's a few days later and it's Friday. I'm sitting in my own bedroom at the club, listening to some music and waiting until we can have breakfast. I woke up extremely early, so I decided to chill out in my room before the day starts. My peace is disturbed by a pounding on my door and a voice calling out, "Church!" I sit up and put on jeans and a t-shirt. Then I stomp downstairs and walk straight into the meeting room where we have church. Hammer, Ink, and my brother are already sitting at the table waiting for everyone to take a seat. I try to read from Jackson's face whether he is serious, but of course I should know better. That man shows very little emotion. Man, Hammer begins in a loud voice while hitting the table with a gavel. I look around and catch Weston's eyes. He frowns and looks away. He seems angry. Shit, is he still angry because of what happened at the club? I'm tired of the uncertainty and decide to confront him after church. First, I would like to say that in light of Chef's absence, I have allowed Morgan to find a replacement. She starts this morning, and I want you to behave properly towards our new guest. Morgan has done her best lately, but she also realizes that fewer and fewer men are continuing to eat at the club. He says, and I see a lot of surprised faces, if he has allowed a replacement to be found, there is a good chance that Chef will not show his face for the time being. Second, what I understand, but this could be as gossip, Chef has gotten involved in things he shouldn't get involved in. The difficult thing is that I don't know if this is true, and if it is true, what kind of cases these would be. But, just to be on the safe side, from now on I always want the people at the gate, and no one just comes in. We no longer just take friends who are not members. You first discuss them with me or Ink and Jackson. There is a unanimous murmur of approval, and Hammer nods approvingly. And lastly, I want you ungrateful dogs to just come back to eat at the club and swallow what Morgan and our new guest put in front of you. He says semi-sternly, and there is laughter in the room. Hams hits the table with his gavel and church is over. West shoots outside, but I don't let him escape. I grab him by the upper arm and pull him upstairs to my room. He stutters a bit, but this doesn't mean anything to me. We're going to talk, no matter how angry or confused he is. Chapter 9: The Talk. POV, Navy. By the time we get to my room, he is no longer struggling. I open the door and push him inside. You and me, let's talk, I growl, and he turns around fiercely and presses a finger against my chest. You ruined it, he says loudly, and I frown. I know, don't look surprised now. You know exactly what you did, he says as he continues to poke my chest with that finger. I grab his hand so it stops poking and he gives it a sharp squeeze. No, but why don't you tell me first what you're talking about? I say, and I'm surprised by my dominant voice, and apparently so is Chris, because he casts his gaze at the ground. He saw you with that bartender, he mumbles softly with his eyes still focused on the floor, and I close my eyes. Okay, so he came back. I take him to my bed and gently push him to sit down. His eyes widen as I crouch down in front of him and look straight at him. If you saw that, then you may have also seen that I was caught off guard and pushed him away, I say, and he shakes his head. Currently he looks more like a grumbling teenager than the adult man is. Why didn't you come to me when you saw that? I ask, irritated, and he rolls his eyes. I was angry, so I went home as quickly as possible, he whispers, and I sigh and sit next to him on the bed. I'm not going to apologize for something I didn't want. That man now knows his place now, and I've let it move on. But Fouquet, man, there's something between us, and it makes me just as nervous as you do. But this distance between us is horrible to me. So if that's what you want, I'll push my feelings for you aside, and maybe we can try to be just friends again, I say, and his eyes snap to mine in surprise. He shakes his head, pushes himself towards me, and puts his mouth on mine. We fall back on the bed and lie against each other on our sides. He stops the kiss and looks at me intensely. I want to be friends with you, he starts, and I feel my heart sink. I was afraid of this. No, listen, he whispers, after which he quickly presses a kiss on my mouth. This is new to me. I always thought I was straight, and here you come with your revelation, and suddenly my whole world is turned upside down. And the idea of having something more than just friendship with you doesn't sound that bad. His eyes have a naughty look, and I can't help but grin. But I need some time to rediscover myself, so all I'm asking for right now is that you give me some time to sort everything out, and that we take it easy before we throw ourselves into a relationship where one person may not yet be ready for, he says, and I am overwhelmed by the maturity with which he speaks, and pull him against me for a hug. We lie quietly against each other for a while, and I am grateful for this moment. That's good. I'm glad you're so open, and of course I accept what you say. I know better than anyone how confusing this all can be, I mumble into his neck, and I feel him nod. We lie like that for a while until the call is made that it's time for food. As if on cue, Chris' stomach starts growling, and we both burst out laughing. A little later, we come downstairs and take a seat in a booth with our breakfast, and Ink and Jackson join us at the table. Hammer, Morgan, and another woman walk over, and Hammer starts introducing Ink. He calls her Ashley, and I suspect she's Chef's replacement. West raises his hand to greet her, but Hammer skips us and introduces my big brother. West and I slap our hands on our chests in pain, and I see Ashley giggling. Behind Ashley, Morgan is laughing, shaking her head and giving us a wink. Jackson stands up being his stoic self, and just gives a nod and mumbles something I can't hear. I roll my eyes at my brother, but can't suppress a grin either. These men here are Navy and West. Navy is Steele's little brother, and West is West, Hammer says as he points to us, and I give her a smile while Chris waves next to me. Welcome, and don't mind my big brother. He's grumpy by default, I say a bit in defense, and to reassure her a bit. She doesn't take it personally and says everyone has their own thing. Hammer ends the introduction, and the ladies disappear into the kitchen together to discuss the menu. It's a strange idea that Chef is suddenly no longer there. I still think it's all a strange story. Chris mumbles next to me, and Ink and I nod in agreement. That's right, and sometimes I feel like Hammer knows more. I must trust him that he knows what he's doing, Ink says with a shrug, after which he excuses himself and walks away. Come on, there are some babies waiting for us, I say with a wink, and Chris laughs at my reverence to the bikes and follows me in the direction of the garage. It's very busy and not everything goes smoothly. Jackson thinks we might have to work a little longer tonight because we're a bit behind schedule, but first we go back to the club for some dinner. Chris and I plop down and I rest my head against the backrest. I was in much of a cramped position when I was working on an exhaust, so my whole neck is stiff. I'm getting old, I growl, and I hear Chris chuckle next to me. Oh yes, Chris says softly, and I look up to see what he's talking about. Ashley walks up to us with 2 beers, and my mouth is watering. A cold beer was just what I needed. Ah, just what the doctor ordered, I say with an exaggerated sigh, as I take the beer and take a big sip, and Ashley laughs. I wonder where your doctor did his training, she says jokingly, and I shrug my shoulders. Our doctor only wants what's best for us, I say with a wink, and I see surprise in her eyes. Do you have your own doctor? She asks in surprise, and Chris and I nod. Certainly. Sometimes we have injuries and they will start asking questions in hospitals, questions that we can't always answer, I say conspiratorially and a bit dramatically, because it never actually happens that there is something wrong with us. Jackson said that in the past, when illegal things still happened, it sometimes happened that someone came back with a gunshot wound, but not anymore in recent years. West taps on the couch next to him as an invitation for Ashley to sit and listen. She looks around and sees that everyone is equipped with something. West explains that we are no longer illegal, but that there are still arguments between different clubs. I'm surprised he's so open about the information he gives. But then again, she's a member of the club now, so it probably can't hurt. She thanks us for the information, as she is still very new to everything, and I decide that I like her. She is a sweet woman who clearly likes to take care of people. When Jackson walks into the room, I see her staring a little too long, and she seems completely in a daze. My brother doesn't realize she's watching him as he walks to his room. Ashley catches my eye, and I can't suppress a grin and a wink. You have my blessing, Ashley. I finish my beer and want to put it back at the bar when Ashley storms out of the kitchen and heads towards the toilets. Not much later, Jackson also walks out, looking after her but taking no action. A deep frown is on his forehead, and I shake my head, chuckling. Dude, did you scare her off with your grumpy face? I say, laughing, and he looks at me as if he wants to kill me. He mutters a "Fouquet you," and I laugh harder. Try to laugh more. That works, I say as I slap him on the back, and then quickly walk away before I get hit in the head. Morgan and Ashley start setting up the buffet, and the aromas coming from the pan smell heavenly. I take a seat next to Chris again, and he leans towards me and puts a hand on my thigh. Ashley seems pretty pissed off. He whispers in my ear, and I nod with a grin. I place my hand on his that is still on my leg and squeeze it. He squeezes and rubs my leg back and forth. He comes a little too close to my crotch, and I growl in warning. He gives me a wink and suddenly removes his hand. I thought we were going to take it easy, I mutter softly, and Chris looks at me challengingly. A little teasing can't hurt. Right, he says semi-innocently, and I roll my eyes. It's easy for you to say. I'm getting blue balls, I mumble, and the asshole has the nerve to chuckle, but he doesn't have time to answer, because Jackson comes over and takes a seat at our table. Have you said sorry to your girl yet? I ask him, also to distract myself from Chris' flirtatious behavior. When he hears the words "your girl," he jumps up and joins the conversation. She's not my girl, you nosy asshole, Jackson grumbles to me, clearly in a bad mood today. Navy, did it just say more than 2 words? West says to me in surprise, and I chuckle. Sometimes it's great to tease my big brother. Apparently my brother's extensive vocabulary is getting him into trouble with the women. This afternoon, he insulted the new cook, I say teasingly, and Jackson almost seems to jump out of his skin with frustration. He abruptly gets up and walks towards the bar, clearly not wanting to be near us. We enjoy a delicious meal, and I'm happy that Morgan has found such a good cook in Ashley. Everyone was feeling really good after the meal. Ashley looks a little too often in the direction of Jackson, who is filling his plate with food for the second time. Staring eyes are in love, I say while singing when I come near her, and she looks at me with big eyes. Do you mean me, or you? She asks, and I look at her with a frown. What is she talking about? Me? No, I was talking about the hard eyes you sent to my brother, I say, stammering a bit and mentally kicking myself. She says she is not interested in my brother, but I know better. For me, she doesn't have to deny it. Why did yours turn red when I asked if you were talking about you or me? She suddenly asks, and I'm momentarily stunned. Why is she asking so much about my love life? Am I that obvious? Oh, look, dessert, I say out loud, and I give her a wink and walk away. I had to save myself from this situation. I walk back to the table and see Wes looking at me with a frown. He seems to be thinking deeply about something. Shall we go to the garage? I asked, and he nods silently. He quickly types something on his mobile and then gets up. Are you okay? I ask, and he nods with a small smile. I don't believe him completely, but I ignore it. If he wants to share it, he will come to me.
Chapter 10 Smoking. POV. West. A weight has been lifted off my shoulders since my conversation with Asher, and I'm glad we're back to normal. It's around midnight when I lock the garage and walk towards home. It's not very far for me, and it gives me some exercise after sitting in the garage for so long. It is dark and the street is illuminated by a number of lampposts, but the air is fresh and I enjoy the peace. A figure is leaning against a lamppost further away, and you see smoke coming from his mouth. When I get closer, I smell the weed and I recognize the man as Jimmy. Well, hello there, he greets with a big grin, and I frown. Is this a coincidence that I randomly meet him again or not? Hi, I say as he pushes away from the lamppost and comes to a stop in front of me. Nice to see you again. Where are you going? He says, and I shrug my shoulders. Home, I say somewhat curtly, and Jimmy chuckles. You're so curt. I thought we knew each other better by now, he says with wiggling eyebrows, and I roll my eyes. That was a mistake, I say as I step past him and continue walking. Oh, come on. I just want to get to know you better. That's all, he says, and when I turn around, he is looking at me a bit lost. I'm not interested in more, if you know what I mean, I say as I cross my arms over my chest, and I see him nod. Just as friends then, he says as he extends a hand, and I hesitate for a moment whether I should do this, since I don't really know why I sometimes get a strange vibe from him. But on the other hand, it doesn't hurt to have an extra friend outside of the club people, so maybe I should see how things go. Fine, friends, just friends, so no funny business, I say as I shake his hand, and he nods enthusiastically. Do you want to have a beer with me? I ask a little awkwardly. I actually want to go to bed as quickly as possible, but it seems that Jimmy would like to talk for a while. Yeah, man, let's go, he says enthusiastically, and we walk quietly towards my apartment. When we get inside, Jimmy immediately makes himself at home and takes two beers from the fridge and then flops on the couch. I say I'm going to the toilet, and when I come back, there is a smell of weed in my house. Duda, what the fuck, hey? I say irritated. When I see Jimmy on the couch smoking a joint, he just shrugs his shoulders, and I walk to the window and open it. Maybe you should first ask if you can smoke in this house, I say angrily, and he looks at me in shock. Sorry, man, I thought a biker like you would be fine with this, he says nonchalantly, and I roll my eyes. He thinks I'm such a stereotypical biker. Well, okay, maybe I am. Do you want one too? he asks as he grabs a second joint and holds it out to me. I sigh deeply and admit, it can't hurt to have one. A few hours later, a few joints and beers later, and I no longer know what is left and right. Jimmy is a surprisingly nice guy, and we had a nice evening and learned a lot from each other. That's how I found out that he is the son of the police commissioner, but that his father doesn't know that he smokes weed and deals. Yes, he threw that out too. I have to sleep, man. Tomorrow I have to go back to the club and work in the garage. I mumble as I stretch and I see his eyes focus on my hands. Yeah, he says somewhat absently, and his red, blurry eyes catch mine, which are probably not very bright either. He moves at a speed that I can no longer follow, and suddenly, he is on his knees in front of the couch, where I am still sitting, between my legs. His hands come to my abs and make their way to my chest. Then he brings them down again and his hands come to rest on my thighs. You're so SI, he mumbles, and I feel myself getting excited. I lay my head on the couch and moan softly out of frustration and irritation. Okay, dude, what did I say? I say as I tried to calm myself. And when I open my eyes I see that his head is very close to mine. I'll change your mind, West, but for now, sleep tight, he whispers, after which he kisses my neck and stands up. He winks at me and leaves my apartment, while I'm still sitting on the couch in a haze of weed and alcohol, trying to gather my thoughts. Fouquet, what have I done? Just after I had such a good conversation with Asher today, I ruined it again. I should have known that Jimmy wouldn't accept us being just friends. He was very clear about what he wanted from the start. From now on I will distance myself from him, because I promised myself and Asher that I would work on myself, and I would like to keep that promise. The next day I'm back in the garage early, despite the little sleep I've had. Asher walks in and looks at me for a while. I take my eyes off him and continue tinkering with the engine I was working on. I feel very guilty after what happened last night, and also what happened in the toilet at the cafe. Even though Asher and I aren't necessarily together, it still feels like I've cheated. Especially since I promised him I would figure myself out. Dude, are you high? I hear Asher ask, and I'm pulled out of my thoughts and look up into Asher's worried eyes. Maybe, I mumble somewhat nonchalantly, and I hear him sigh. Maybe, your eyes are like two tomatoes, and I had to ask you 3 times if you were high until you heard me, he says, irritated, and I feel my defense mechanism rise and I jump up. You just have a lot on my plate. Okay, leave me alone, I say, perhaps a little too loudly in his face, and I see that I have caught him off guard with my outburst. Shit, I mutter. I'm just so confused. I want you, but it scares me. I miss our friendship before I found out your secret, but I don't really want to go back to that friendship. I want more. I want you, but I feel guilty because of Jimmy. I'm sorry, I mumble with my eyes on the ground. And before I know it, 2 arms come around me and Asher pulls me against him. Oh no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been so hard on you. I guess I'm just a little worried, he says, and I shake my head, which is in his neck. Don't worry, I should have just stopped. After half a joint, I say with a chuckle, and Asher looks at me with a raised eyebrow. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have smoked weed at all, I say with a roll of my eyes, and we both laugh softly. We are both knocked out of our bubble when the front door of the garage opens and the imposing figure of Steele enters. Let's get started. The boss is in, Asher says with a wink at me, and I hear Steele growl from his side of the room. We managed to complete most of the bikes that came for maintenance. Steele regularly receives a phone call, and I wonder why he is suddenly so popular. My stomach is growling and I see that it won't be long before it's dinner time. I can't wait to eat something delicious at the club again. Ashley is a great cook so far and everyone loves her cooking. We have to go to the club right now, Steele says as he puts down his phone, and Asher and I jump up, put our stuff away safely and quickly head to the club. The moment everyone sits down and our priz hits the gavel, I immediately see from his face that he is serious. We have found Chef, he mumbles, but he is not very enthusiastic about it. You can tell from the rest of the men that they don't really know whether they should be happy. Apparently, he overdosed and they found him somewhere on the side of the road, Hammer says, and I hear some people around me gasp. Something stinks in here. Chef didn't use drugs. Steele grumbles next to Hammer and I see him nod in agreement. I don't know how, what and why, but I do know that we will be there for him as a club, and that we will do everything we can to get to the bottom of this, says Priz determined. Everyone shouts yes and hits the table hard, and it is nice to see how everyone is there for each other at times of need. We all discuss some strategies, and Steele has arranged for the ladies to bring our dinner to us. When church is over, everyone spills out and I follow Steele and Asher towards the bar. But I'm exhausted and I want to go to bed as quickly as possible. I'm going to bed. Dream about me, I whisper in Asher's ear, and I see his cheeks turn red as he gives me a smile. Immediately after this flirt, I feel guilty and I am sure that I will now distance myself from Jimmy, because that can only lead to misery. And right now I know for a fact that if I wanted to be in a relationship with any man, it would be Asher. When I've showered and I'm in bed, I check my phone and see a message from an unknown number. Unknown. You owe me something. Tomorrow I'll come and get it from your house around lunchtime. Just make sure you're there, or else. EJ. What the fuck? Chapter 11 Snitch. POV. West. The buzzer goes off in my apartment. When I look through the hole, I see Jimmy standing there. I knew it. I open the door and he immediately pushes himself in, but he is not alone. Another man follows him and sneers at me. An uneasy feeling creeps up inside me, and I have the feeling that this is not a friendly visit. What the fuck? What are you doing here? I say angrily as I slam the door, a little too hard, and Jimmy looks at me with a satisfied grin. We need your help, he says nonchalantly as he tells the other man to sit at the dining table. The man in question rolls his eyes but listens, but not before looking at me quizzically. Jimmy takes 3 beers from the freezer and puts them down on the table. I don't know what's going on, but I don't want alcohol right now. I want to keep a clear head for what's to come. Sit down, Wes, Jimmy orders, and I roll my eyes as I sit down. This is Brady. He works for my dad, he says, nodding his head at the man. What do you want, Jimmy? I don't have much time, I lie as I fold my arms and lean back in my chair. I hope my nonchalant attitude and irritated tone show him that I'm not insecure about the situation, when in reality my heart rate is way too high right now. We want to receive information from you about the club in the near future, Brady begins, and I raise my hand to silence him. Yeah, buddy, that's not going to happen, I say, while looking straight at him, and he gets a big grin on his face. Yes, we already suspected that you were going to be difficult, he says as he takes a sip of his beer and glances at Jimmy. You have to keep an eye on someone for us in the near future. My father is working on a plan for your club, but he hardly trusts anyone around him, Jimmy says with a shrug, and I roll my eyes. And why would I do that? There's no way I'm going to spy on my brothers, I say, irritated, and Jimmy chuckles. And what? if I tell you that you already have a spy in your midst, he says with a smug smile, and my eyebrows shoot up. Someone from our team recently joined your club, and they are passing on information to us. Only, that person already thinks that you are not doing anything illegal. She seems to believe your story, but we know better. We know what kind of animals you are, and what illegal practices you do, and my father has made it his personal mission to destroy you. So in the time it takes my father to hatch his new plan, you will keep an eye on our spy and report to us what she is doing. Jimmy is red in the face from his emotional sermon, and looks at me intensely. I don't know what you think, but our club has been legal for years, so you won't find anything, I say as nonchalantly as possible, and Jimmy starts laughing manically. West, but you're wrong there. People like you are never innocent, he says with a sneer, and I run a hand over my head. Forget it all, Jamie. I won't betray my brothers, I say a bit hopelessly. I don't know what they expect, but I'm not going to betray my club. Yes, that's what I thought. You club members always terribly loyal to each other, Jimmy says with a roll of his eyes, as he stands up and takes his cell phone out of his pocket. Luckily I can persuade you, he says, chuckling, and it almost makes me laugh. Who does he think he is? You wouldn't want your beloved friend to see this, would you? He makes a crochet movement at the word friend, and shows a photo on his cell phone. My heart starts beating even faster when I see the photo. How is this possible? I see myself sitting on my couch with my head leaning back, and in front of me, Jimmy is on his knees running his tongue over my arms. Or this one, he says as he swipes to the next photo, where I am in the same position, but this time Jimmy is half on me and his head is in my neck. In both photos, it looks like I am enjoying it extremely. I look around and try to see where he could have taken those photos. He must have put something somewhere, a hidden camera or something like that. You won't find anything, West. Forget it. But oh, look, this is my favorite, he says, looking at his phone for a while with a dreamy look. We look good here, he says with a wink at me, after which he shows his phone and I feel the blood drop from my head. It's a picture of us in the cafe's bathroom, with Jimmy on his knees in front of me and my snig in his mouth. My eyes are closed and his hands are on my hips. What the fuck, man? You can't do this? I shout angrily as I jump up and grab him by the shirt. I'd better come down, buddy, says Brady, who suddenly stands next to me and takes my hand off Jimmy's shirt. You wouldn't want Navy to see these photos, would you? Jimmy says defiantly, and I take another step towards him with a growl. But again Brady stops me. Bouquet off, I sneer in his face, but Brady just gets a nasty smile on his face. Oh, and you owe me some money from all the weed we used the other day, Jimmy says as he puts his phone in his pocket and looks at my smug. Money? If I had to pay money for that, you should have told me in advance, I shout despondently, and all he does is laugh, and I am more than tired of his laughter by now. This is what's going to happen, Brady says as he grabs my shirt and puts his face right in front of mine. You're going to give us information about Ashley. I want to know everything. Who she's talking to, what she's doing, where she's going, everything. And in trade, we keep these photos with us and don't send them to your boyfriend. And you don't have to pay Jimmy money for the weed you so eagerly accepted, he growls, and I feel splashes of saliva on his face. I roughly push him away and run a hand over my face and then distance myself from the two men. Ashley is the spy. Why was she sent to us if you don't trust her? I ask calmly, as I tried to get my temperament under control. I'm afraid my father has lost his mind. That's all you need to know, Do what I ask of you, West, and at the end you will be happy with that hot guy of yours, he says as he walks past me in the direction of the front door. Fouquet, you Jimmy, I shout, but he just gives him a flirtatious look and turns away. He grabs his crotch where a bulge can be seen. The Fouquet is hard. He is out of his mind. I like a bit of aggressiveness, and those photos brought back good memories, West. Call me for a repeat. As you can see, I'm ready for it, he says with wiggling eyebrows, after which he opens the door and walks outside. Grady takes a burner from his pocket and holds it up for me to take. I grab it from his hand with some aggression, but the man can only grin. I better stick to the rules. You're our little snitch bitch now. Jimmy's father is not someone you want to mess with, and you know what they say. Like father, like son, he grins when he finishes talking and claps me on the shoulders. He walks out of my house and I lock the door behind him. I lean my head against the door and groan loudly. What do I owe this to? What an incredibly shitty situation this is. On the one hand, I think, Fouquet them, and I'm telling all this to the club so they can help me. But on the other hand, that might mean I lose Asher if he sees those pictures. I know it's only afternoon, but I could use some alcohol to numb myself for a bit. I can kick myself for not going harder against them. I had hoped I would have a hard comeback. I don't worry much about the money I supposedly owe him. I could pay him that easily. But the pictures, those fucking pictures, they're killing me. How did he take those photos of the toilet at the cafe? Is there a camera there? That really shouldn't be allowed. But if Jimmy is really as crazy as Brady says, then nothing surprises me anymore. I throw myself on the couch with a glass of whiskey in my hand. My eyes are stinging from this situation. But the last thing I want to do is cry like a little bitch. Hopefully the alcohol will bring some clarity to my head, and if not, I hope it numbs me as much as possible.
Chapter 12. It's complicated. POV, Navy. I tighten the screws that ensure that the exhaust is properly seated again. Then I wipe it with a cloth and look at the Harley with satisfaction. This bike was a big job, but it is always very rewarding when it is repaired and the owner drives away satisfied. I look around the garage where Jackson and I are working. The workload has been less the last few days, so maybe I should spend some time cleaning and tidying up the garage, because that's really needed. Deep in my thoughts, I get to work, first sweeping the room, then tidying up the reception area and wiping it down with a cloth. Maybe if the business continues to run this well, we can hire someone to do the administration and cleaning for us. The doorbell rings and I feel hopeful that West will come in, but when I look up I see Denzel walking in. Denzel is fairly new to our club, and he got his name because a few Devil's girls think he looks like Denzel Washington. I push aside the disappointment about West and give Denzel a smile, put the wet cloth away and shake his hand. What can I help you with, man? I ask, and it looks behind him where I see his motorcycle. The kickstart doesn't work anymore. I'm afraid I broke that pedal, he says sheepishly, and I chuckle. This is a problem that happens often. Just drive it into the garage. But I don't know if we can arrange it today given the time, I say as I look at my watch and see that it is almost closing time. No problem. I expected that. I will be picked up here in a moment, he says, and I nod. I write down his details in the problem while he drives his motorcycle in. Through the window I see him greet Jackson, and then he waves to me as he leaves. I sigh deeply and continue tidying and cleaning. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's good to put my rattling thoughts aside. West hasn't been around much lately. He isn't at the club much, and when I send him a message, the responses are fairly curt. My feeling tells me that something is going on, that there is something wrong with him. But on the other hand, it could also be that he is busy with himself, as he told me, and I want to give him as much time as possible to figure himself out. But a selfish part of me would like him to include me in that. Ash, Jackson shouts, and I turn around so quickly that the world spins around for a moment. I close my eyes to come back to this earth. I called you a few times already, he grumbles irritably, and I shrug my shoulders sheepishly. What can I say? I'm completely absorbed in cleaning, I say, as I throw the wet cloth at him. The big idiot catches it with ease as he continues to frown at me. Are you okay? He asks, and I blink my eyes for a moment. When did I give him the idea that I am not doing well? Eyes, what do you mean? I ask in surprise, and he rolls his eyes and walks towards me. You've been a bit absent lately, a lot in thoughts and quieter. Normally you talk the ears off my head, he says, and I chuckle because that's right. When it comes to communicating, we are very different. Nothing's wrong, I say with a wave of my hand, as I throw the dirty water into a sink. Does it have to do with West? I hear him ask carefully, and I feel myself stiffen. What do you mean? I fool myself a bit, and I hear him sigh. I may not be the most social person on earth, but I can't see that something has happened. Only I don't know what, he says, and I sigh deeply and put everything down. I turn around and look at him on. It's complicated, I say a bit tentatively. Maybe this is the time to bare my soul to him. Or is that weird? Maybe I should do that when we eat together somewhere, and prepare him a bit before I start that conversation. Jackson puts his hands on my shoulders and bends down a bit to look straight at me. I look straight into the familiar gray eyes that I also see when I look in the mirror. Can I help with anything? He asks, and I look past him and shrug. I don't think there is anything he can do. Did you have an argument? Because I notice that West is mainly here when you're not there, he says, and I look at him in shock. So it still works? I ask, surprised and a bit angry. Is he really avoiding me? Jackson nods and looks at me with a frown. I cross my arms over my chest and sigh deeply. No arguing, but I sighed, but I don't know whether to say it or how to say it. If you don't want to tell, that's fine, but I'm here for you if you need me, he says, and it doesn't sound like Jackson, the normally stoic, close man that he is. Okay, I say when I feel my eyes stinging, and I am surprised by my physical reaction. I never really cry. I never really feel the need to cry, but I think the situation with West is more emotionally difficult than I actually thought. Ash, Jackson puts his arm around me. He clearly realizes that I'm struggling with something at the moment. Don't judge me for what I'm about to say. Okay, I ask softly, and I see him shake his head. I have feelings for West, and I told him that a while ago. I spit the words out of my mouth, but I see that Jackson doesn't move a muscle in his face. There is no disgust visible. And how did he react to that? He asks after a little silence, and I blink. Why isn't he surprised? Not bad, but he wants to find himself before we start anything. He didn't know he could be attracted to, I say as I look at the white wall and swallow to hope the lump in my throat disappears. To men, to you, he asks softly, and I nod while clearing my throat again. Why don't you act surprised or angry? I say, and he looks at me with a small smile. I've had a slight suspicion for a while now, and Ashley was recently asking about your relationship with him, he says, and I roll my eyes. Women, I sigh, and Jackson chuckles. But it was up to you to tell me when you wanted to, and I don't blame you, he says, and I look up to hold back the tears. Fouquet, thank you, I say with a cracking voice, and I pull him towards me for a hug. Love you, brother, I mumble into him, and I feel him nod. Love you too, man, and I hope you can work it out together, he says, and I nod, even though the situation feels a bit helpless. Ashley stumbles into the club as she looks horrible. Excuse my language. Believe me, the woman is beautiful, but with a bird's nest on her head and the dark circles under her eyes, she looks really worn out. Woman, you look rough, I say as I put an arm around her and take her to the bar. I wave away her protest to work first and sit her down on a bar stool, after which I go behind the bar to pour her a cup of coffee. Navy, what are you doing behind the bar? Looking for a new job? Morgan's voice sounds from behind me, and I give Ashley a sheepish smile. Then I stand next to Morgan and put an arm around her. You lady boss, I made sure our new cook had enough oil in her body to make good food for us. I cringe at my own words, but I can't take them back. I hear Ashley giggling, and I give her an uncomfortable look. Navy, get your hands off my wife! Hammer shouts across the room, and my heart starts beating fast, and I immediately take 2 steps away from Morgan. The woman in question laughs and gives me a wink, after which she jumps into Hammer's arms. They start making out in public, and I feel a small pang of jealousy. I would love to be that happy with someone, but that person is as withdrawn as they come, and it's like I no longer exist to him. It's been a few weeks since I had the conversation with Jackson, but West hasn't shown himself much yet. Well, this is a nice soap in the morning, I mumble as I also grab a cup for my coffee and sit next to Ashley. She really is a wonderful woman, and she and I often have good conversations when we sit at the bar. Where's West? I hear Ashley ask, and I shrug my shoulders, because I really have no idea. Helping Steele out at the workshop, I think, I say somberly as I pour some coffee into my cup. I look at her questioningly, and she shifts her cup for a refill. How are you and him doing? She asks, and I look at her in surprise. Does she also know that there is something between us? But then I remember that Jackson had said that Ashley had asked him about us, and I swallow a lump in my throat. It's complicated, I mumble, and is silent between us for a while. I knew quite early in my life that I wasn't into women. I start my story and look at her sideways. She gives me her full attention and decides to pour my heart out to her a little. My brother was the first one I told. Somehow I knew he wouldn't judge me, but I only told him a few weeks ago, mainly because I got closer to West. I never thought West was into men. I knew he could be someone I could really fall in love with, but respected that it would never happen because I thought he was straight. A few weeks ago I confessed to him that I have had feelings for him for a long time, and before I knew it, he kissed me. The feelings and images of the evening rush through my head, and I take a sip of my coffee that quickly is cooling down. Fouquet. I got so excited that I immediately deepened the kiss. A suppressed desire shot up. Only my action brought him out of his haze, and he ran out of the club. We had some good conversations afterwards. He said he wants to find out what is before. I can't finish the sentence properly, because I don't know if there is a future for us. Before he gives you hope for more, she says, and I nod. Even though I don't know if it's the truth. I noticed that he was increasingly showing that he likes me. Small touches and sitting close to me. Only I'm a bit reserved, because I don't want to scare him off. So I told him I'll keep my distance until he takes the initiative himself. But right now he is really closed off, I say. That's very brave, Navy. I can imagine it's hard to see someone struggling like that when you want to be close to him. She says, and I nod again. She is so accommodating and compassionate, and I am glad she has joined the club. I really see her as a good friend now. Thanks, Ashley. I know I'm into guys. Otherwise I would have competed with my big brother. I flirt a bit, and I manage to see her blush. She mumbles something, and I laugh at her behavior. She's clearly having trouble starting up today. Good luck, darling. Thanks for the chat, I say with a final kiss on her cheek, and I retreat to my room. I lie down on my bed and decide to watch some TV. Normally I'm not very good at sitting still, but right now I'm exhausted. Very late at night, I get a message from Jackson that Chef has been released from the hospital, and that he and his sister are coming to stay with us for a while. Tomorrow we have church, and they hope that Chef's sister and Chef themselves can provide some clarity about all the things that have happened lately. Chef has recovered well from his overdose and hopes to be able to get back to work soon. But apparently, he is in a difficult package, so it will take some time. I send West a message asking if he will also be at church tomorrow. The message is read immediately, but it takes more than 10 minutes before he responds. And yes, I counted them. The answer is just one, yes. I throw my phone on my bedside table and sigh deeply. I know it's probably wise to have a conversation with him again, but I also want to respect his decision to invent himself. It just takes so long. I think I'm losing him, as a friend, and as a possible lover.
Chapter 13 The Truth, POV, West. These past few weeks have been complete torture. I'm tangled up in a web of lies, blackmail, and idiotic people. The things I now know about Jimmy, his father, and what they did are too many to mention, but I agree with Jackson. The police are completely corrupt. Jimmy's father, Jack, is completely lost, but Jimmy completely supports his father. Despite his unstable situation, they're pretty disappointed in me. Apparently, I'm not passing on enough information to them, but in all honesty, there's just not much to pass on. Ashley, or Vanessa, acts very normal, and I can't believe she's undercover with us. It's all taking too long for Jack, and he is currently taking the final steps before confronting the club. I pace back and forth in my living room, pulling my hair. I'm at my wit's end, and I don't know what to do anymore. I should have ringed the alarm much sooner. I should have confided in Asher about my situation much sooner. I should have confessed everything to Hammer much sooner. Maybe it wouldn't have come to this, and we could stop Jack in another way. My phone vibrates in my pocket, and I look at the message. It's from Jimmy. Jimmy, You're freed from your debts. We're going to the club now for the end game. Don't bother showing up, Ashhole. Wait. I decide to drive straight to the club, and hopefully I'll get there before they do. Less than 10 minutes later, and perhaps with a big fight, I arrive at the club and it is clear that something is going on. As I walk through the front door, I see Hammer giving a speech with so much passion and dedication that I am momentarily taken aback. The man is clearly stressed, but also wants to do everything he can to keep the situation as calm as possible. I don't know exactly what Hammer, Steel and Ink know, but it's clear something is going to happen. And after Jimmy's message, I'm sure it has to do with them. I'm trying to make my way to our president in hopes of finding out what's going on, and perhaps confessing what's been happening to me lately. I catch the eye of Asher, who is looking at me with furrowed eyebrows. I have hardly been to the club lately, and I have been avoiding him like the plague. A shot of guilt shoots through my body when I see the pain and powerlessness in his eyes, and I know that I am to blame for that pain. He has tried to talk to me so many times over the past few days and weeks, but every time I waved him away or walked away, I couldn't face him knowing that I was actually betraying him and the club. I know it's not entirely my fault, considering the threats I received from Jimmy, but I should have done something sooner. I shouldn't have let it go on for so long. But you have guard the gate, together with Ryder. Steele calls to me and I tear my eyes away from Asher and frown at Steele. He raises an eyebrow when I don't respond right away, and when I go to open my mouth to say something he turns around and starts giving different orders. I look around and look for Hammer, but he's nowhere to be found. Then I see Ryder standing at the front door and I sigh before I walk over to him. We take our place at the gate and wait to see what will happen. But I wasn't ready for what was really going to happen. Jack has Vanessa hostage with a gun and is all shouting madness. Hammer is doing his best to calm things down, and I envy the man's patience. Steele, on the other hand, is about to explode. It is clear that he is very protective of Vanessa. One thing leads to another, and before everyone knows it, Jack goes completely crazy. Vanessa tries to calm him down, but it ends with a bullet in her shoulder. Hammer tackles Jack to the ground, and Jimmy and Brady are also thrown to the ground. I walk towards Vanessa, where Asher and Steele are sitting on the floor with her. I hear my name come out of her mouth, and a dark look comes on Asher's face. I run away as quickly as possible. In no time I'm back in my house, and lying on the couch with an arm over my head. It is almost inevitable that Vanessa knows that I knew about her. Otherwise, why would she say anything about me when she has just been shot? I get up and walk to the kitchen, where I grab a glass and a bottle of whiskey. I pour a lot and take a few big sips. The liquid burns in my throat, and for a moment, I can forget what a shit show my life has become right now. I don't know how long I sit there, but suddenly I'm taken out of my thoughts by a loud knock on the door. I drag myself up, and when I open the door, I forget to breathe for a moment. Asher stands before me in all his glory, and even though he has a face that looks like a storm, I can't deny how handsome he looks. He growls softly when I don't move aside or say anything, and he pushes past me. His scent fills my nostrils, and I take a deep breath. I had no idea how much I missed that, and this may be the last time I can smell him and have him close to me. "What the fuck did you do, West?" He shouts across the room, and I cringe slightly at his tone and the fact that he doesn't use my real name. I clearly screwed up. I stutter and close my eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. I have to get myself together to have this conversation. Sit down for a moment. I mumble and Asher stomps over to the couch and sits down, but not before he grabs my glass of whiskey and knocks it back in one go. Do you want a glass too? I ask a bit stupidly and he shakes his head. I want answers, he says brusquely, and I nod in defeat and sit down opposite him and put my head in my hands. What have you done? He asks more calmly now, and I take a shaky breath. Day after. What happened in the club? I met Jimmy again when I went to get coffee. He was very convincing and knew the right things to say. I was already so confused by what had happened the day before that I can't continue talking for a moment. When I get to the part where I perhaps dreaded the most. He didn't do anything. I let it happen, I mumble, as I keep my eyes on the ground and look at my shoes. What did you let happen? He asks, and I shake my head in shame. He gave me a BJ. He followed me into the toilet, and before I knew it, he was on his knees in front of me, and I shake my shoulders. I don't have to finish this sentence, and I hear him sigh deeply and curse. And then, he asks in a cold voice, and I glance at him for a moment. But I wish I hadn't. Even though his eyes are hard, I can see that he is hurt. When it was over, I fled and hoped not to see him again. I felt so ashamed, so confused and bad. It was so hard to face you again. But I didn't dare to tell you either, I say softly, and I feel my eyes burning. I blink a few times to try to push away the tears. Second time I met Jimmy. It seemed like he was waiting for me. I met him when I was walking home. I let him talk me into it, because he said he wanted to be friends. He promised that he wouldn't make any moves on me anymore, and I thought it wouldn't hurt to have a friend. Besides the guys from the club, I continue, and I see him shaking his head in disbelief. You should have seen a lot of red flags when he approached us at the club, especially because we were pretty close back then. He mumbles, and I nod and laugh humorlessly. Believe me, I'm painfully aware of that now, I mutter with a roll of my eyes. He made himself very comfortable here at home, as if he were a child at home. We drank some beers and smoked way too many joints. I've never been so stoned in my life. When the evening came to an end, he tried to make a move, but in the end I rejected him and he left. A few days later, he urgently wanted to speak to me and we met again at my house. And then it happened. He had pictures of us on my couch, in an erotic position. And he had a video from the toilet at the cafe, which clearly showed what he was doing to me at that moment. And in addition, I still owed him a lot of money from the joints. He claimed. Now the money wasn't really the problem. The problem was the photos, which he threatened to show to you if I didn't do what he wanted. I say defeated, and I hear Asher sigh. Oh Chris, why didn't you come to me? Or Hammer? You know we would have helped you, he says, throwing his hands up in despair. You'll think I don't know that now. That's all I can think about right now. Why didn't I do that? But I was so afraid of losing you, and I was just so confused. I don't think I've been thinking straight lately, I say, and I feel a tear rolling down my cheek. I didn't want to lose you, I whisper, broken and exhausted. I could really fall asleep at any moment, and then I don't want to wake up until everything is fine again. What did they want you to do? He asks after a long silence, and I shrug my shoulders and look into his eyes for the first time. I see that he is a little shocked by the tears. He probably sees, and a kind of softness comes into his eyes. He had to pass on information about Vanessa to them. They no longer trusted her. There just wasn't much to pass on, and they didn't really appreciate that. I mumble as I stand up and look outside. It's quiet for a long while, neither moving or saying anything. We are both processing the day and the past few days, and the rest also ensures that my heart starts beating a little slower. I'm sorry, Ash, for everything I finally say as I turn around and his tired eyes catch mine. He stands up and nods. I need to process this, he says, and I hang my head, not knowing what else I can and should do. Again, I'm sorry. I understand if you don't want to see me for a while, I say, defeated with my hands in my pockets. I hear him shuffling and his footsteps walk further away from me. Have I lost you? I ask softly, not knowing if he can hear me at all. When I dare to look up, he is standing at the door with one hand on the doorknob, shaking his head while looking intensely at me. Give me some time. Just like I've given you time these past few weeks, he says in a cold voice, and I nod, and before I know it, he's gone.
Chapter 14, Friendly Grounds. POV, Navy. So, tacos or pasta tonight? Vanessa asks me as we put away the groceries in the kitchen, and I shrug my shoulders. It's your call, I say as I put peppers in a container in the refrigerator. But, what are you looking forward to? She asks, and again I shrug my shoulders. To be honest, I don't feel like doing anything at the moment. Pasta then? She mumbles, and I put the rest away and put the bags away. I walk out of the kitchen and stand next to Jackson, who is typing something on his phone. Are you okay? He asks without looking up from his phone, and I hum in response. I look to the side and see West and Denzel walking in. They laugh at something Denzel says, and I can see from the plastic on West's arm that he just got a new tattoo. Have you talked to him yet? I hear Jackson say softly, and I shake my head, my eyes still on West. You know everything is fine between him and the club, right? He has confessed everything and Hammer has forgiven him, he says still softly, and I sigh deeply. Of course I know that. I can't think of anything else. I'm mainly afraid that if I reach out my hand, he will run away again, and I don't think my heart can handle that again, and that's why I'm still distancing myself from him. I'm not crazy. I see the looks he regularly throws my way. I see the looks of longing, the desire to talk everything out, to build a friendship again, and maybe it's time to bury the hatchet. It's already been 8 weeks. I have an appointment with Ink. Then I'm going to the garage. Jackson mumbles with a slap on my shoulder, and I nod. I'll see you there, I say as I give him a small smile and turn towards my room. Am I doing that to avoid West until we can have lunch? Maybe. Do I feel like a jerk for doing that? Sure. I wish I could take a ride on my motorcycle. That's always a good medicine to clear my head. But unfortunately, it needs to be repaired at the moment, and it's so busy that I said mine could go last. I pick up a book and start reading it. I read the sentences, but they don't really register. A knock on my door makes me frown, and just as I'm about to call out who's there, I hear him. A Navy. Are you there? I hear Wes say through the door, and my heartbeat skips a few times. There's another knock, but my brain doesn't move to answer yet. This is the first time in weeks that he has reached out, and everything in me is screaming to open that door and pull him in. But my mind doesn't agree with it yet, and is not ready for a confrontation and perhaps another disappointment. I hear a deep sigh and footsteps walking away. I exhale deeply, and I didn't even realize I was holding it. Fouquet, I'm an asshole. I'd rather run after him, but I want to find a more suitable time to have a quiet chat. I fall back on my bed with an arm over my head. Images of West's disappointed face in front of my door flash through my mind. A moment later, I wake up to the sound of my cell phone vibrating in bed, and when I unlock my phone, I see several missed calls from Jackson, and when I look at the time, I see why he has called me so often. It is already 8 o'clock in the evening. Fouquet. Shit. I sit up, put on an old shirt, and go to the garage as quickly as possible. There's a good chance that Jackson and West are already gone, but at least I can work a few more hours to make up for it. I call Jackson while I'm driving to the garage, and as expected, he's not very happy with me, but I am quickly forgiven when I tell him that I will work a few more hours tonight and that I will close for him tomorrow so that he can go home to Vanessa on time. A man is completely enchanted by her, so of course he takes all the time he can spend with her. When I arrive at the garage, I see some lights still on. I know Jackson is gone, so it can only be West who is still there. I gather my balls and go to open the door, only to find that it's locked. That would mean West might not be there, and Jackson forgot to turn off the lights, which is not like Jackson. I open the door and look around. The music is still on, but there is no one in sight. I walk to the staff room to see if anyone is there, but that room is also empty. An unpleasant feeling comes over me, but I can't quite figure out why. Once I have looked at all the rooms and seen that nothing is missing, I let go of the strange feeling and get to work. After 10 minutes, I hear the crackling sound of an engine that clearly comes to a stop in front of the garage. There is some rumbling and the garage hatch slowly opens. To my surprise, Wes Spy comes into view, and from the looks of it, he didn't expect me to be here. We look at each other for a bit with wide eyes and surprised faces until I clear my throat and nod my head. "Hi," I mumble, and he smiles a bit sheepishly as he rubs the back of his neck. "She's done," he mumbles, and I frown in confusion. "Oh," I ask as I walk towards him, but when I look past him I understand what he means. The motorcycle he arrived on is mine. I look at him with wide eyes and walk to my beauty. It shines beautifully again, and the flashing new exhaust that I wanted to put on it is on it. I've been working on her the last few evenings. "I hope you're okay with that," Wes says softly as he comes to stand next to me while I am still looking at the bike in amazement. "Who says it's Aisha?" I say calmly, and I hear Wes chuckle. "Because most men see their motorcycle as Aisha, but I should have known you would be different," he says, grinning, and I shrug my shoulders calmly. "Women don't do it for me," I mutter softly, and I feel a warm hand touch mine. I don't dare move. This might be the moment we've both been looking forward to, or dreading, but when I feel Wes' hand slip into mine and squeeze tightly, I let go of a long breath. I close my eyes and absorb the feeling this action gives me as we stand quietly next to each other. "Thanks for the motorcycle," I mumble as I open my eyes and turn slightly to look at him. "I'm sorry," he says with a pained expression, and I shake my head. "It's okay," I mumble, and now it's his time to shake his head. He takes my other hand and looks at our hands. "No, you must understand me correctly. I'm sorry about everything, from Jimmy, the snitching, the insecurity between us. It's killing me. I don't know if you can ever bring out feelings for me again, but I want you to know that I'm going to fight for you. Over the past few weeks, I have let you go. I have given you time to process everything as you did with me, but I want to continue. I want you." He looks at me with big, honest and scared eyes, and I feel my eyes stinging. I sigh shakily and look up to hold back the tears. Wes squeezes my hands, and I feel all the stress of the past run out of me. I pull my hands from his hand for a moment. I see the uncertainty about my action come into his eyes. I wrap my arms around him and hold him tightly against me, and it doesn't take long for him to do the same. We stand quietly against each other for a long time and don't say anything. We are just enjoying each other and letting go of the stress. "Go on a date with me," I say, and I feel the vibration of his laugh against my chest. "With pleasure," he says, chuckling as we let go of each other and look at each other. "Can I kiss you?" he whispers as a hand goes to my neck, but I take his hand and shake my head. "No, not before the first date," I say with a wink. At a lot of pain in my heart. "But first I want to see how he feels about going on a date with me. Perhaps being seen in public with another man. Somehow I still have trouble with trust, and I'm still quite afraid that he won't want me after all." "Too bad. You don't know what you're missing," he says with a wink, and I laugh out loud. "Believe me, I know." I laugh as I walk in and continue working. I hear Wes fiddling around with my bike, but I pay no attention to it. "I'm going home. It's been a long day," I hear him say a little later, and I nod with a smile. "Thank you for my bike. That means a lot to me," I say, and my heart jumps a bit from the smile that appears on his face. "Thanks for the second chance," he winks, and I shake my head laughing. "I can't wait for our date."
Chapter 15 Date POV West. I'm in love. I can't make anything else of it. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize that this man in front of me was perfect for me. His frown is endearing as he stares intensely at the menu to see what he wants to eat. We are both big fans of Mexican food, so it wasn't hard to decide where to eat before going to the movies. Asher didn't really agree with my choice to go to the movies after dinner. He wanted to go somewhere where we wouldn't sit quietly in the dark, without being able to talk to each other. But when I said that I really wanted to see that movie, he quickly gave in, but demanded that we do something else on the next date. And of course, I won't say no to that, especially because I know for sure that there will be a second date. "Shall I make a choice for you?" I ask with a raised eyebrow, and Asher's eyes snap to mine. A little color comes to his cheeks and he smiles a bit sheepishly. He seems nervous. Sonny, I thought I'd be the most nervous, but it looks like Asher has it worse. Wes, for many people, intimidating man now sits opposite me as a nervous pile of man, and that does something to my heart. Why are you so nervous? I ask calmly, and he looks at me, after which he sighs and sinks back in his chair. It's just me, I say with a shrug, and one corner of his mouth turns up in a crooked grin. That's the problem. What if, he says, after which he runs a restless hand through his hair and looks elsewhere. What if, I insist calmly, and he sighs deeply. What if after this date you think, no, I don't want to do this with him, he says mumbling, and I spot the uncertainty in his eyes, and I know I'm to blame for that. On the one hand, after our first, oh no, second kiss in the club, I had the right to reinvent myself, but after that, it all got so bad and we danced around each other for a long time, that I understand his insecurity. I look around. The restaurant is fairly quiet, and no one seems to be paying attention to us. But I also think that that shouldn't matter much to me, because I want nothing more than to move forward in our relationship. So I have to put aside my fear of public affection with a man to reassure Asher. The man is not as tall as his brother, but he exudes authority that is accompanied by a jovial and gentle character, and I should have thought that his insecurities would arise, and that he is afraid that I will run away again. I make my decision and get up and sit in the chair next to him. He doesn't say anything but follows my movements with intense eyes. I'm not running away anymore, Ash. I want everything with you, I mumble as I place a hand on his neck and press our mouths together. My intention was to give him a kiss, reassure him, and then go back to my seat so we could order. But as soon as our mouths touch, the sparks fly and we deepen our kiss. His tongue enters my mouth and begins to dominate mine. His hand comes to my thigh and squeezes my covered flesh. A groan escapes my throat, and that causes us both to get out of our daze and distance ourselves from each other. Fouquet, I hear him whisper, and I grin from ear to ear. The effect we have on each other is enormous, and I can't wait to explore that further. I couldn't wait for the end of the date. I whisper in his ear, and I see goosebumps running down his arm. I go back to my seat opposite him and pick up the menu again, just in time because a waitress comes by to take the order. The rest of the dinner is comfortable, and Asher is also more at ease. We joke and talk like before, and the atmosphere in the restaurant is pleasant. We decide to walk to the cinema to relax a bit. It's only a 10-minute walk, so it's quite doable. After a few minutes of walking, I feel Asher's hand in mine. First a light touch, and then he takes my hand. I look to the side, but he looks forward stoically. My heart is pounding, but I don't feel panic rising. I squeeze his hand, and I am rewarded with a big smile from him. We get something to drink, but decide to get popcorn during the break because we have just finished our dinner. We're sitting all the way in the back row. I didn't do that on purpose at all. Wink wink. Even though you can't talk much during the movie, I just want to snuggle up to him, and this movie is the perfect movie for that. When I told him during our walk to the cinema that it was a thriller, Asher was not very enthusiastic. Did I deliberately choose a scary movie when I know he doesn't really like it? Maybe. Did I feel like a complete teenager again when I was hoping he would snuggle up to me if he found it scary? Of course. I'm curious. You know I'm not really into thrillers, he mutters as we wait for the movie to start. Maybe I did that on purpose, I chuckle, and he looks at me in shock at first. And then there is a sparkle in his eyes that I know all too well. Normally he makes a crazy statement or starts teasing, but in this date setting, I also see a spark of desire shining through in his eyes. Just be careful. Who knows? I might end up on your lap, he whispers in my ear, and I have to suppress a loud laugh, because the movie is just starting. Don't threaten me with a good time, I whisper back, and I can't resist taking a little lick and nip from his earlobe, and the reaction he gives is more than rewarding, because a shiver runs through his body, and even though it is dark, I see the longing in his eyes when he looks at me. The movie is starting. Pay attention, I say with a poke in his ribs, and he grunts in response before glancing at the screen, but it doesn't escape my notice that he shifts very subtly and presses his hand on his crotch. It looks like I have found the first erogenous zone in him. The movie is freakishly bad. I don't know why the trailer got me so excited. Everything is very predictable, but fortunately the scary effects are somewhat good. Asher shifts slightly and puts an arm around my shoulder. It feels like a very cliché move, and that makes me chuckle a bit. I look over and I see him looking at the screen with a grin. While there isn't much to grin about because the woman being stopped is running for her life. I don't understand why you were so excited about this movie, he whispers in my ear a moment later, and I shrug my shoulders. I was just thinking the same thing, I mutter disappointedly, and the chuckle he lets out still close to my ear sends shivers through my body. I get a taste of my own medicine when he takes my earlobe between his teeth and gently pulls. The bastard doesn't stop there, because his mouth drops to just below my ear and gives a kiss there. Goosebumps break out over my body when he very softly and very calmly gives more kisses on my neck and on my shoulder. His hand that was behind me comes into my hair, and he places his other hand on my chest. I feel like a complete idiot because I can only sit there frowning while he has his way with my neck and ear. His hand slides up from my chest to my cheek, and he pushes my head towards him and kisses me hard on the mouth. I don't know how long we kissed, but suddenly the lights come on, and when I turn my head, I see the credits rolling on the screen. That went fast, I mumble as I stand up and stretch. A bunch of teenagers walk by and giggle as they look at me. Asher pulls me down and I flop back into my seat. You need a minute, he says with a look at my crotch, and I feel a blush come to my cheeks. Asher chuckles, but he also has to adjust himself in his pants. I love kissing you, Asher mumbles as he looks at me with sincere eyes, and I feel my cheeks getting even warmer than they already were. So, I say, after which I stand up again and pull him up with me. I take his hand and walk out of the room with him. I give a wink to the group of giggling teenagers, and they all give me a thumbs up. I laugh out loud, and Asher looks at me questioningly because he didn't notice my interaction just now. I would do him too, sir. I hear someone shout behind me, and now it's my time to give a thumbs up and laugh even harder. Asher shakes his head laughing, but I also spot his red ears and the blush on his cheeks. You're terrible, he says, grinning and shaking his head, and I shrug my shoulders. They just agreed with me that you are a good catch, Ash, I say, and now it's time for him to laugh. The youth of today are shameless, he mutters, shaking his head as we walk back towards the restaurant where we parked the car. I agree with you there, I say, and I grab his hand again as we continue walking. When we are in the car, we just sit quietly next to each other, but the silence is comfortable and content. I think we're both relieved that it went so well, and I hope he enjoyed it as much as I did. He stops the car in front of my house, and suddenly doubt sets in. Do I ask him inside, or do I say goodbye here? What is normal? I'm not ready to move on yet. But sitting together on the couch sounds pretty good. But who knows? Maybe he just wants to go to bed. Or maybe he's had enough of me. My turbulent thoughts are stopped by a hand on my cheek and lips on mine. You think too much, Chris, he mumbles against my lips, and I chuckle softly. Sorry, I didn't know whether to ask you inside, I say a bit sheepishly, and he shakes his head laughing. You want nothing more, but let's take it slow, because if I come upstairs and we start kissing again, I think we might go further than you're ready for, he says, as he presses his forehead against mine and closes his eyes. I nod cautiously, somewhat disappointed and somewhat relieved. I'll see you at work tomorrow, he mumbles with one last kiss on my mouth, after which I open my door and step outside. Thanks for the date, I say with a wink, before closing the door, and I see him shaking his head laughing. This was the perfect evening for us, and I'm glad we arrived at this place after the past few weeks.
Epilogue. POV. Navy. 1. 5 years later. Soft crying sounds come from the room next to us. I am pulled from my sleep when the sounds become louder through the monitor. I take one leg out from between Chris and give him a gentle push. There is little response from him, but the sounds through the monitor become louder. Babe, it's your turn, I mumble sleepily, and I hear Chris groan and stretch. He mumbles something inaudibly and sits up. No, you have to go, he says as he shoots back into bed, and I groan loudly. No way, yesterday morning it was my turn. Now it's yours, I growl, and Chris turns to me with panic in his eyes. I can't go to a baby with morning wood, he whispers loudly with wide eyes, and I can't suppress a laugh. She's a baby. She doesn't know, I mumble, chuckling, but Chris shakes his head. No way, that's inappropriate. You should go. I'll do it again next time, he says, and I sit up mumbling and walk to our guest room where Mila sleeps. Baby girl, you slept through the night. Mom and Dad will be happy with that. I coo at the little baby, who is now looking at me with a smile. I pick her up and press her against me. She burps and then starts babbling a bit. Ew, was that what was bothering you? I say softly, but I am just stared at by the blue eyes that look at me with adoration. I feel her body start to tense, and I know exactly what is going to happen. I walk her to the changing table while she empties her bowels into her diaper. Wow, girlie, that's enough, I mumble as I start changing her. I hear Chris enter the room, and he walks to her bag. What's the weather going to be like today? He asks as he inspects the collection of clothes, and I shrug my shoulders. Cold weather, so something nice and warm, I say as I button her romper, and I get a big smile from the little girl. Does that make you feel better? I'm happy about that, I coo to her, while I tickle her stomach and she laughs. This? Chris asks as he shows a purple onesie. I nod and continue dressing Mila. Mila is Jackson and Vanessa's little girl, and she has spent the last 2 nights with her 2 uncles for the first time. Mila has stolen my heart, and I can't get enough of her, unless she wakes up at an unholy hour in the morning. Chris had to get used to the little girl, but mainly because he was afraid he would drop her. He said, but now she has become an indispensable part of our lives, and when Vanessa and Jackson asked if she could stay with us, we immediately said yes. They wanted to go away for a weekend on the motorcycle together, but that is of course not possible with a little one. Vanessa shed quite a few tears when saying goodbye, but Jackson eventually pulled her along with the words that she was left in the best care. Yesterday we went to the zoo with her, but I can't say she understood much of it. The only thing she found very interesting were the aquariums, but she was probably too young for the rest. Then we had dinner at a pizzeria, while Mila got a bottle from Chris. We didn't eat there for a very long time, because Mila decided she wanted to let everyone know how big her lungs were. I'll make coffee and warm up a bottle for her, Chris says, and I nod in approval. A little later, I walk Mila into the living room and put her in a rocking chair, which will keep her busy for a while before her bottle. It is a hyper-modern thing that moves, has music, and even vibrates. Jackson thought it was exaggerated at first, but now he swears he can't live without it. I walk to the kitchen and admire Chris putting the powder into the bottle with precision. I walk over to him and wrap my arms around his waist and press him against me. I put my nose in his neck and breathe deeply. Good morning, I mumble into his neck, and he turns in my arms and starts shaking the bottle. No, I say, and I take the bottle from his hands. First he looks surprised, and then he thinks about his mistake. Oh yeah, shit, stir with a fork and don't shake, he says with a roll of his eyes, and I have to laugh at his impression of Vanessa. Mila is currently suffering from abdominal cramps, and Vanessa is very adamant that there should be as few bubbles in the milk as possible. Well, luckily she'll be picked up soon, he says with a shrug, and I shake my head, chuckling. I'm looking forward to having time together again, he says as he presses a kiss on my mouth, and I can't suppress a grin. You were the one who didn't want to do anything while she was with us, I say as we walk towards Mila together, and then take her to the couch where we can feed her. Of course, this can also be done alone, but we enjoy doing it together and waking up peacefully. That's inappropriate, Ash. It just makes me feel uncomfortable, he says with a pout, and I burst out laughing. Chris absolutely did not want to do any sexual activity while Mila was with us, hence his discomfort this morning when he woke up and had to go to Mila. I didn't see much of a problem with it, and I probably did everything I could to persuade him last night. Unfortunately, the man is terribly stubborn, and I couldn't change his opinion, and I had to fall asleep while I was extremely hard. It's hey baby, she doesn't know anything, I say while I caress his thigh with my hand. Ash, he growls as quietly as possible, so as not to wake Mila after she fell asleep from drinking. What time are they coming back? Chris asks as he puts Mila on his shoulder to burp her, and I shrug my shoulder and stand up. Around noon. Coffee? I asked, and he nods enthusiastically. That man never turns down a cup of coffee. An hour later, we decide to walk around with the stroller, and eventually we end up at the club. We walk in, and Morgan rushes up to us, grabbing the baby out of the stroller before we can say hello. Oh, hello, my pretty girl, she says to Mila, and the lady in question makes an almost neighing sound and starts to smile. You look good behind a stroller, Press shouts, and Chris and I raise our middle fingers at the same time. Hey, not near the baby, Morgan says as she puts a hand over Mila's eyes. Even Morgan says babies have it all figured out. Chris whispers loudly in my direction, and I roll my eyes. Oh, this baby isn't seeing anything, Chris. Don't worry, but it's better to start early with your behavior and change that. Then when they start to realize it, says Morgan, and I give Chris, and he told you so look. Very good, Chris. I know how dirty these men's mouths are, Morgan says as she cradles Mila in her arms, and I see Chris swell with pride at the compliment. I found out that Chris responds very well to compliments. He needs a little more confirmation than others to remain confident that he is doing well. He was very insecure in the beginning, especially sexually, so he took to it very well when I was a bit more dominant and told him what to do. And when I told him, he did a good job and how good it felt. His eyes lit up. Do you ever want kids? Prez asks as he takes Mila's hand in his large hand and kisses her cheek. Not only do we love the little girl, the rest of the club loves her just as much as we and her parents do. She has so many uncles now. This girl is spoiled on all sides. Maybe one day, but we have never looked into how it works with the men. And how it works, I say with a shrug, and Chris nods in agreement. We should go back. I have to help Denzel in the garage, Chris says, and I walk to Morgan and take Mila out of her arms and put her back in the stroller. When we get home, she has fallen asleep, so I let her lie down in the stroller inside. I'm leaving, Chris says hurriedly as he puts his coat back on and gives me a kiss. I grab his face with both hands and push my tongue into his mouth. He almost melts against me with a groan, and his hands slide to my ash. 2 days without astral contact is way too long for us, and I can't wait for tonight. After 5 years, I still can't get enough of this man, and I am still so grateful that we found each other. I love you, I whisper against his mouth, and I feel him smile. Love you too, he says softly, after which he steps away and looks at me naughty. He adjusts himself in his pants, and I give him a wink. He plants one last kiss on my mouth and walks to the door. Oh, Ash, he says, and I raise my eyebrows and look at him questioningly. Get ready for tonight. Your Ash is mine, it says, pointing with an index finger, and I groan out loud. He laughs loudly because he knows very well what he is doing, because now I spend the whole afternoon looking forward to the evening with a hard-on. Luckily, I'm a patient man. 3 hours later, I walk around the room with Mila hoping she will burp. She isn't crying, but it's clear something is bothering her. The doorbell rings, and I walk to the door to open it. I am greeted with Jackson and Vanessa's faces. Jackson immediately picks Mila from my arms, and I think my face was very surprised, because Vanessa next to me giggles softly. He missed her even more than I did, she whispers, and I chuckle as I give her a hug. We hear a loud burp, and I turn around to see a big wet spot on Jackson's shirt, and I burst out laughing. Good to see you, the baby girl, he says with a roll of his eyes, and Vanessa and I burst out laughing. Do you want a new shirt from me? I ask, and Jackson nods while he hands Mila to Vanessa. Then I'll just grab her things from upstairs, he says to Vanessa, and we walk to the guest room together. A little later, we are downstairs and we say goodbye again. I hug Mila and give her 100 kisses on her soft cheek. Love you, girlie. Just like Uncle Chris, I mumble in her ear, and I hand her to Jackson, who puts her in the car seat. Thank you for the babysitting, Asher. We're very grateful, Vanessa says as she gives me a hug. You're welcome. We'll hear it when we're needed again, I say with a wink, and a moment later the house is quiet. I decide to clean up the guest room, and I take a vacuum cleaner through the house. I suddenly hear the front door and look at the clock. Chris is home earlier than expected. Honey, I'm home, he shouts, and I chuckle at his idiocy. You're early, I say, as I walk over to him and greet him with a kiss. I needed some alone time with my boyfriend, he says with a wink and holds up the bags with the logo of one of our favorite Italian restaurants. Tell me that there is lasagna in there, I say as we walk to the kitchen, and I hear him laughing. I don't dare bring anything else for you, he jokes, and I shrug my shoulders sheepishly. A little later, we are sitting at the coffee table in front of the TV watching a show with our empty plates in front of us. Chris is very quiet, but I suspect he is tired after a day at work. Ash, he asks a moment later, and I look at him expectantly. He wiggles his hand a bit and seems even more nervous. What is it? Is something wrong? I ask now, a little worried, but he shakes his head with a small smile. Would you ever want to get married? He asks a bit uncertainly, but I immediately nod enthusiastically. As of course, we've never actually talked about this, but I definitely want to get married, I say with conviction, and I see him breathe a sigh of relief. Good, because, you know, that you are IT for me, right? He says as he looks into my eyes, and I frown a bit. Where is he going with this? Yes, I hope so actually, because I love you more than anyone else, I say a bit uncertainly, and he now smiles fully. Will you marry me? He asks as he grabs my hands, and my mouth falls open in surprise. Are you serious? I ask in a voice much too high for someone my size, and he nods with a blush on his cheeks. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small box. Fuker, I was seriously thinking about looking for a ring for you this week. I laugh as I feel my eyes sting. You're a bit older. You're getting slower, he says with a wink, as he takes the ring out of the box and looks at me hopefully. Well, he says impatiently, when I don't answer and just look at him stupidly. Fuker, yes, I say as I throw myself at him and give him a hug while I press my nose into his neck. Yes, baby, I'm yours forever, I mumble into his neck, and I feel a tear roll from my eye. Can I put the ring on now? He asks, chuckling, and I distance myself from him and let him put the ring on my finger. It has my name on the inside, with today's date, he says with a shy smile, and I press a kiss on his mouth. I love you, I mumble against his mouth, and I feel him smile. Love you too, forever, he says softly as he pushes me back and lies on top of me. Oh, I promised something for tonight, he says with a naughty glint in his eye, and I already feel myself getting hard. I can't wait to continue sharing my life with him. The end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This helps others discover the story too. Hit the bell icon for the latest updates, and stay tuned for more thrilling books.